across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning to you. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 10, and whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, watching on YouTube, all the other ways of watching and listening, great to have your company. If you did miss anything from the show yesterday, or you're going to be popping, how dare you turn the radio off at any point today, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to spend all 3 hours talking about how brilliant that solar clip was last night. We are not going to do that. Do not worry. We will, though, be discussing how moving asylum seekers to middle-class areas to make it all fairer, and we can all do our part, is actually going to cost taxpayers more. But according to the Prime Minister's spokesman, it's a point of principle for the Prime Minister. Well, it's good to know he's got principles, isn't it? That he wants to spend more of our taxpayers' money doing something that no one in the country, whether middle class, working class, poor, rich, north, south, wherever they live, wants in the country. Apart from, some Labour MPs. Just move them all next door to the Labour MPs. That'll be fair, and that's definitely a point of principle for me. Also, we're going to be talking about Labour's Borders Minister admitting that housing asylum seekers will create, in poorer communities, will create civil unrest and has caused a problem. So, assuming they think that there's nice middle-class people in the leafy shires won't be getting civilly unrested. I mean, it's all just madness, it really is. Meanwhile, 14 asylum seekers, extraordinary number this, 14 asylum seekers turning up on Britain's shores under Labour every single minute. Sorry, apologies, 1 every 14 minutes. Get it right. Still a terrifying number, 1 every 14 minutes under Labour. Love to hear your thoughts on that. Also going to be talking about all the wildfires. We've talked about that a bit this week. Labour's environmental policies now are being blamed for turning Britain into a tinderbox over wildfires because, of course, you know, rewilding basically means you don't clear the undergrowth and then you've got a tinderbox for the wildfires. Also, economic figures are out today for the last quarter. The economy grew at a slower pace in the second quarter of the year at 0.4%. Rachel Reeves, the former Chancellor there, is saying that, this is good news. To be fair, it is under pressure from the war in Iran, but with no signs of that ending anytime soon and the Strait of Hormuz being reopened. Bit of a worry, for the current Chancellor, who has been remarkably quiet today on a day when you would normally expect the Chancellor to even make a statement. We'll talk about all of that, plenty more besides. Love to hear your thoughts on anything and everything we're talking about. If you want to call in and tell me how sodding marvellous the solar eclipse was last night, feel free, but I will think you're on drugs. But if you want to call in about the 1 legal migrant landing in Britain every 14 minutes under Labour, but Andy Burnham still thinks it's a good idea to move asylum seekers to middle-class areas, despite it costing taxpayers more, because it's a point of principle that we all have to pay our part, and it's fairer. I don't think it's fair for anyone to have asylum seekers near them. I live in a middle-class area, as I pointed out yesterday, and I still have an asylum hotel at the end of my road. So I think everyone's already playing their part, aren't they? And the constituencies that don't have any yet, well played to you, I would say. Bet your crime rate's lower, eh? What is your reaction to this? So, point of principle that it's going to cost taxpayers more than, by the way, the billions it already costs us to house all these asylum seekers. And that is a point of principle for the Prime Minister. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost 1 standard network rate message. Delighted to say Philip Ingram, MBE, joins us today. He's former senior military intelligence officer, as he does on every Thursday. Great to have you in the studio. As
morning.
Always.
Yes.
Morning. I'm going to have to ask you, it's what everyone was asking this morning, did you watch the solar eclipse?
I did.
And did you enjoy it?
Well, I knew it wasn't going to be anything that was going to be spectacular, and I just enjoyed the atmosphere of something celestial happening. That is very rare.
Because I love these sort of celestial
yeah, I do.
things.
I'm a geek when it comes to that stuff.
Unfortunately, I'm old enough to remember the 1999. I mean, it was a full eclipse then. Yeah. I mean, certainly fuller than last night's in England anyway. I know people had a better experience in some of the parts of Spain. But I remember, standing on the roof of a building where I was working at the time, and and it was, I think it was late morning, wasn't it? But it was during daylight hours, and it got really, really dark. and then really liked it. And it was really something amazing and special. And I know a lot of people have much better experiences. In our garden, to be fair, we didn't have the glasses and it went behind the trees.
Yeah, exactly.
At a crucial moment when we would have been able to look at it anyway. And I have to say, it was just a bit of a... But I was thinking, I was going to go really dark. It went a little bit darker. I mean, not dark, and then a little bit lighter. Turns out that 9% of the sun not being eclipsed is still a heck of a lot of sun.
It's an awful lot of energy, yeah. And then what it did was it detracted from another fantastic celestial event last night, which was the Perseids meteor shower.
Yeah.
And therefore people are going, oh, the eclipse is boring. What's it? Oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But then the Perseids meteor shower comes around every year. So
but also I think everyone's just a bit knackered by the heat, aren't they? Everyone's going, right.
No.
No,
it's
you're
lovely.
not.
No,
you're one of
it's
those
lovely,
people.
yes.
Can I just point out, and I did tweet about this, genuinely, I was on the tube on the way to work this morning, as I get every morning, crowded tube, and the woman opposite me is wearing tights, a jumper, a padded gilet, like a full padded jacket, and a hat. And I'm looking
Scandinavian.
At her like, I'm looking at her like, what?
Scandinavian, probably.
She's thinking it's going to be 38 degrees today in London.
Or you know, well, my uncle is he every summer he goes to Northern Ireland for 3 or 4 months because he lives in Phoenix, in Arizona, where it is over 100. Yeah. So it's 40 to 45
and yet
degrees.
Do people survive there? Because apparently we can't survive in these temperatures. But there we are. Let's turn our attention to the subject I want people to call in on in particular. Again, as you know, call in on anything you want. One illegal migrant arrives on our shores every single minute, and that's what's been happening ever since Labour took power in July 2024. More than 80,000 across the Channel in the 768 days since the party made it into number 10, according to The Sun. I mean, that is still an amazing stat. Now, the numbers have gone down, there's no doubt at all about that, but again, we don't know why the numbers go down. Is it policy? Are they stopping the smaller boats, and that's why they're now getting these comedy 49-foot big boats? What is going on, or has it just been the weather? Who knows? Are they going to other countries like Spain, where there's been this amnesty for people who've arrived illegally? I mean, you just don't know. Those numbers are extraordinary, they are still coming, and we may see a boom in them. We may see numbers going down. It seems to me it rarely has anything to do with policy from government. Meanwhile, we've had this announcement from the Prime Minister in an interview on Monday, where he basically said that that for him, I mean, I find this fascinating. He said, I do have to say, we cannot have a situation where it's only the poorest communities in the country that receive all of the dispersal of refugees and asylum seekers. I do believe all parts of the country need to work to play their part. It's a challenging issue. We're working at it. We understand people's concerns. Now, people pointed out that, OK, if you're going to move people to more expensive areas, A, accommodation is going to cost more, and B, the idea that people aren't playing their part and that people, have to accept them. The people in working class and poor areas didn't accept these people. They weren't asked, they didn't want them. In the areas where even councils have said we don't want them, in asylum hotels or houses of multiple occupancy, the government has ignored them and challenged any attempt to close down hotels and stop this from happening. It's going to cost everyone more. You could argue the middle-class taxpayers, the ones paying the taxes, paying for it. But yeah, the brunt has absolutely been on poorer communities where there are just some cheapy hotels that haven't got anyone in them, and a load of houses that could be turned into houses of multiple occupancy where they're sitting vacant and they can put them in. And it's cheaper than housing them in, Mayfair, where, funnily enough, there isn't a load of really cheap accommodation available. Now, it is just extraordinary, though, that this is the solution. But fascinatingly, yesterday, it's just extraordinary. The Downing Street spokesperson has said that Andy feels that the current system is unfair, and as a point of principle, he wants to see a redress of the distribution. We all want to see fewer people crossing to the UK and a decreased use of all asylum accommodation, but it needs to be fairer in the meantime. He acknowledges that it would cost more money to do it more fairly, but that is what we need to do. That is insane.
Oh, completely insane. Right, let's put some numbers behind this. 768 days, 80,000 asylum seekers. How much is that costing us annually? £3.6 billion. This week we had a boat come across the Channel with 230 asylum seekers in it.
That's 25 million alone.
No, that's 10.35 million on an annual cost. Now that's at
lifetime.
But this is annually. So that's at £45,000 a year, which is one of the underestimates of what it actually costs. And TikTok Andy coming out and turning around saying he wants to redistribute them. Then he's going to have to change central government policy, because government policy puts a cap on the level of rent that there is that can be paid. Rent in some of the better areas is going to be more expensive, so he's going to have to throw more money at it. The Chancellor's going to turn around and say, we haven't got any more money to do that. So,
but it's a point of principle.
Well, yes, but what he's doing is he's lying in the same way that two-tier care did.
Yeah.
So TikTok Andy is doing exactly the same thing by coming out with a soundbite that makes his populist backbenchers sit up and
but
go,
I've also said in his Makerfield constituents, he said this was something that people, he raised this in the day after in a speech he made. But again, this is one of the things, is that when he talks about, this points to people, everyone playing their part. But the highest numbers of asylum seekers are now in the northwest, in London, the West Midlands and Yorkshire, and the Humber. Some constituencies have never had anybody. Well played to them, I say. They haven't got that sort of accommodation. So, basically 1 in 10 local authorities have never hosted any. But I mean, no one wants them. Whether it's leafy villages in West Oxfordshire, Piddington, or Southwark, where we are right now, nobody wants them. I don't want them in the hotel at the end of my road either. We weren't given a choice. No one wants to have them, and it's the idea that here's my point of principle, Andy Burnham. Why do we not let people who've illegally entered our country stay here? Yeah. And if we are going to have them staying here while we process them, A, the processing shouldn't take years, which it does. When he says in the meantime means 10 years. Yeah. I mean, but but while they are being processed, they should be behind bars. They need to be locked up in camps and not allowed to leave, not allowed to work illegally, not allowed to commit crime, not allowed to sexually assault or to rape, just not allowed to be here. And if you're a genuine asylum seeker, you're fleeing genuine persecution, you're getting your 3 meals a day and a shower, and you've got a bed, and you're safe, you will be grateful for that.
Yeah, he's missing the trick with this. And the trick is to get them out of the country. People don't want them here. Well, if we can't stop them coming in, and the French aren't doing it, the legal aspect of trying to stop them crossing the channel is really difficult. So as soon as they land, they're picked up and they're put into holding camps, which are secure, that they're not allowed out of until they're processed, and they're processed out of the country within 7 days.
Exactly.
That should be the policies coming out.
It's fascinating. Yesterday, Anna Turley, who's the Borders Minister, she said that housing asylum seekers in poorer communities has created real civil unrest. Has put a huge burden on local communities because they're taking more than their fair share. We want to make sure that we're managing the system much better in a more sustained way. No, we don't want it. No. We don't want it. We don't. I'm also saying that's reducing the impact of local communities. Well, then don't have these people in local communities.
Yeah, throw them out of the country.
Well, some of these places they're looking at, I mean, and indeed, it's a Labour MP who's actually Rachel Maskell, MP for York Central, one of several prominent Labour politicians, opposing plans to sort of convert former barracks in their areas. There's basically a plan to put 1,200 men in RAF Linton on Ouse in North Yorkshire. Plan had been made in 2022, but fierce local opposition, very organised, they managed to stop it. It's back under consideration. But, look, dwarfing the number of people in the local area. We've got the residents of Piddington, I mentioned earlier, in Oxfordshire village. They've got a population of 400, and there's a plan to rehouse 1,250 single adult male asylum seekers in a nearby MOD storage depot. And they've had this wonderful symbolic vote to secede from the UK. I think that's a brilliant plan. I mean, it's just mad. To add to the insults and things, volunteer clowns, by the way, there is no sentence in the English language that ends well, which begins with the 2 words volunteer clowns. That's a giveaway.
That's the cabinet, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a giveaway. No, that we pay those clowns. It's a giveaway that the sentence is going to go downhill very rapidly. A queue of migrants in Calais, I kid you not, watched in bemusement as volunteer clowns attempted to lift their spirits. It's juggling, performance, etc., It's a camp at Lune Plage on the outskirts of Calais, where 2,500 people are waiting, basically paying their journey to the UK. I mean, absolutely extraordinary. This guy, there's a woman, Laurence Quetel, and her dungaree-clad troupe. I mean, everything about that sentence upsets me as well. Began performing under the stage name Clown Holala, after the exodus of Syrian refugees during the Civil War in 2016. I mean, just go away. Go away, people. I mean, we are living in mad territory, aren't we?
Lock these people up. I'm sorry.
Leave the asylum seekers free. The volunteer clowns.
Yeah,
Jeff. Not in our country, at least not our problem.
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair, maybe this is why they are fleeing France, because there are
they're being imposed.
There are women like, you know,
in
doing
dungarees.
Women in dungarees. There you go. That's the start. Doing clown stuff at them in Calais. No wonder they're getting on the rickety boats. They're desperate to get away from it.
Get away from the French. Yes.
I think we finally solved the issue.
Yes.
Let's talk to Macron about the clowns. I mean, I don't know. Do you think they're doing mime as well?
Oh, almost certainly.
I mean, if it was mime, fair dues. Give those people asylum today.
But just think of the cultural difference. It's going through my head. Comedy is very, very difficult to translate across different cultures.
There's only one country that does comedy well.
All the rest of it.
And it's Britain.
Yeah.
The only reason America has good comedy is because of Britain.
Yeah.
It's as simple. It's really... I worked in Germany once. Oh, my God, they still thought Benny Hill was like the height of comedy. Seriously.
I had a good German friend who loved Hello, Hello.
Hello, Hello is actually quite funny.
Yes, but
is it the height of comedy genius? I think perhaps not. Let's talk about other very serious stories. Simon Levy, a serial sex attacker, apparently with a morbid fascination basically with rape. He's been jailed for the rest of his life. Finally... found guilty of murdering 2 women, raping a third. The Old Bailey yesterday, the judge, Mark Lucraft, sentenced him to the whole life order, so he'll never be released. About time. But it comes after literally a litany of failures from the police and the Crown Prosecution Service. He just carried out attack after attack after attack, often on on London transport. He kept being on bail, officially monitored by the Met, while he continued attack after attack after attack. He's even let out of prison and not interviewed for 5 months after a serious sexual assault on a female prison officer. I mean, it's just utterly extraordinary. Women who were abused by him, who were raped by him, assaulted by him, repeatedly told the police who he was, where he lived. You know, again and again, nothing done. We've had the Met Police Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, talking today at the BBC, basically saying, look, he's apologised again and again and again. But he says basically they've got, you know, more than 10,000 registered sex offenders in London. They've got an extra 100 added to that list every 3 months. But the Met is 4,000 officers and backroom staff, smaller than it was 4 years ago. And he said we cannot be expected to manage these people. The probation aren't doing it. We're left doing it. We've got more people to manage who are dangerous than our counter-terrorism colleagues are monitoring. We can't keep people safe. I mean, he's apologised again and again and again, but we've got, you know, more families of victims coming forward going, what does someone have to do to get put behind bars? And this comes up again and again, which is that we're constantly told the police they're not arresting people who steal phones or bags or anything, but because they're focusing on the serious crimes. No, they're not focusing on them either.
Well, this is where there's a lack of accountability. You know, someone somewhere has taken the reports of these rapes. Someone somewhere has looked at them and made an assessment as to, we're not going to go and nick him today, we're going to monitor him a little bit harder. Someone somewhere has made a decision to take that off a priority list. Those individuals, I'm afraid, need to be held to account.
Need to be sacked, because they're obviously not up to the job.
Because if you had a doctor who decided that, you know, every doctor that sort of misses a patient's diagnosis and all the rest of it will then go through the General Medical Council and will be held to account.
Well, not everyone.
If they're identified and is pushed through, we're not seeing the same sort of level of holding account.
But I don't know how many times the Met Police can apologise. And a lot of these crimes were taking place since Wayne Couzens and David Garrick, you know, other cases of police officers who, again, I mean, there were so many chances to catch Wayne Couzens, the police officer who abducted, raped and killed Sarah Everard.
Yeah, this is where the buck stops at the top. And if Mark Rowley doesn't get it sorted, and it's his problem to sort, funding and others, these are priorities.
At the end of the day, you've got to do what you've got to do with the resources you've got. And again, even if they were tackling people like Simon Levy, OK, they're not doing anything to find the guy who's out for bail for over a year now of the theft of my handbag in 2024. You could almost think you could vaguely live with it. Yeah. Not really. I don't think there's an excuse for that. But they're not doing either.
They're not doing anything, and this is the trouble, and therefore what they're doing, you know, and the wording that came out from Sir Mark Rowley, where he turns around and says we don't have the resources. So he's actually using the fact that a criminal has been allowed out to rape women across London so that he can bid for more money. Well, I'm sorry, that's sick. He should go.
And the extraordinary thing today, also emerging in the papers, that Labour has admitted that it's still, despite the lack of prison places that we've seen, despite all these emergency releases from 23 under Tories, 24 under Keir Starmer, and now again coming up in October, from October, 6,000 criminals, many of them very dangerous, very likely to be prolific repeat offenders, being released early from their terms. Labour still has no plans to build any new prisons. Now, there are also new prisons coming online, but those are new prisons that were set and trained by the Tories. There were prison places that were increased under the Tories. However, at the same time, they mothballed. I think they had 5,000 new places, and they mothballed 5,000 places. Guess what? We ended up with no new prison places while sending more people to prison. I mean, it is utterly, and for longer, it is utterly extraordinary that no one is planning to build new prisons. They cost a lot of money. They do take time. But we have this constant thing, whether it's nuclear power stations, reservoirs, roads, hospitals, I mean, prisons, whatever it is. We go, well, we haven't got the money now, and they take a long time. I won't get the benefit of it myself and my government as Prime Minister or as Chancellor, so I won't do it. And then nothing ever gets done. There is no long-term joined-up thinking or policy making for the public good as opposed to the party's good.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. You used the word mothballs there. So that means that there are prison places available. They're just in mothballs, and it would cost less to refurbish those if they need refurbished at all, and bring them back into, take them out of mothballs so that they can be used. That will get rid of it. Ian Itchison, a good friend, and he's spoken on the show on numerous occasions. He was a prison governor. He advised the Home Office on prison policy, turned around and said that is distinctly possible. He also said, we've used prison ships in the past. Why don't we bring prison ships back again?
The key thing is we haven't got enough sodding spaces, and they're like, 400 people. I mean, that's just the arrivals over the weekend.
This is someone who has advised governments on policy, and he says these things would work. He knows what he's talking about, yet nobody's thinking about this. Yeah,
it is genuinely, and even the fact that the Ministry of Justice has only been told by Andy Burnham in the last couple of days, right, find a way of not having to release a load of people who have been convicted of manslaughter. You tell him, and they're saying, we've already looked at it. Well, you haven't looked at it hard enough, but it is mind-blowing that they haven't been. I mean, again, as we've discovered, most of Whitehall is working from home. They're not talking to each other. Computer says no, too difficult. I can't be asked to come into a meeting. Apologies for language, but, so it doesn't happen. I'm sorry, it's just absurd. Look, we're going to have to move on because I do want to talk about one other topic. Students getting their A-level results, their T-level results, their B-Tech results today. Let's not forget the T-level and B-Techs. Those kids, by the way, are probably going to earn more than your kid doing media studies at uni, even if they've got a good place at a good uni. Just throwing that out there to you. But a record number of students are going to basically find out they've got their place. Incredibly, a quarter of places now are going through clearing. I've been on the phone with friends whose kids have, got into Oxford, kids who've got into the university, the other university of their choice, and managed to get their second place. They're really, really happy. But also, friends going, really worried about, my kid's going to go into clearing, but there aren't any good places left. And I went, no, there are like 3,500 places available. At top Russell Group universities, the top sort of 20-odd universities in the country, including, subjects, like maths. I mean, good, solid, proper subjects. Those places are available. You can basically, if you've got better grades, you can basically get yourself into a better uni than you've perhaps accepted an offer for, and if you've got worse results. But basically, the odds are, if you've missed your results by 1 or 2 grades, the odds are is you'll get into the course you've accepted anyway. Because, of course, universities aren't getting a load of foreign students anymore. And I don't know what this is. I mean, we understood during COVID they couldn't travel. I wonder how much that is down to the fact that they know they're arriving here. They're not going to, we're told, going to be able to bring half their family with them and get to stay for a very long time. They are, well, they probably would be allowed to, but, stay, but because no one will notice. They're also probably aware that they're not getting much teaching. A lot of universities are still doing an awful lot of stuff on Zoom. I know people who've got kids at universities who are basically barely getting any contact with their tutors at all. I don't know what the hell they're paying, 9.5+ grand a year for, plus all the maintenance costs as well. They're not getting very much. They're thinking it's not very good value, despite the fact we genuinely do have a world-class university system. But a lot of these universities now say they're going to go under. I say good. I think we need to probably cut on a university. I mean, at least a third need to go under. We need to stop all the Mickey Mouse courses that aren't going to get anyone a job but aren't intellectually or academically stretching at all, and get young people into work, into training sooner that's actually going to leave them with better job prospects. But if they are academic, if they've got a particular vocation and it does involve a degree, go for it.
We need to de-Blairise our higher
Oh,
education
my God,
system
don't
and bring the polys back that will focus on a lot of the more vocational studies and allow those with T levels and BTECs and all the rest of it to progress through, and those that want to go up an academic or professional academic chain to go into that. And we need to cut the funding for all these Mickey Mouse degrees.
It's just ridiculous. I feel so sorry for all these kids who come out. They told this deal, and they go, "Well, I got to university. I'm going to get this bonus." And they go, "Well, I'm not going to take that job because it's not a good graduate level job." I hate to tell you, you're going to probably end up doing a non-graduate level job. Although a lot of jobs now, even you work as a barista, we want somebody who's gone to university because they just assume everyone needs to go to university now. But it is genuinely absurd to get yourself into 50 grand's worth of debt unless you've got a particular plan, something you want to do via uni. I mean, it is just true. I think also we really need to look at uni being a 2-year thing, not a 3-year thing, without the long breaks and getting people focused and then people being able to go to uni from home. I had a wonderful time. I went to Oxford, had a fantastic 3 years. I was on a full maintenance grant. I was being paid to go to uni. Now, if it was up to me, I'd have fewer people at uni, and I would make darn sure, and I'd have grammar schools in every area. I'd open them in every single poor area to make sure that people were getting, young people from poorer backgrounds could absolutely get the top class education that they need. And I would bring back full grants.
Yeah, we need to break the psychology.
No fees. I wouldn't have fees.
We need to break the psychology where you have to have a degree to do everything. My mother was a nurse. She did not go to university to get nursing. She did it as an apprenticeship, as a student nurse working the whole way through. That's whenever nursing worked, because you were taught from a practical perspective. You were taught on the wards and with patients.
There's a very snotty attitude from a lot of people, both in the political world, and I know that Andy Burnham, Keir Starmer, they talk, and all the politicians talk a good game on this, and then you'll find on a day like today they're trying to get their kid into a top university. But the end of it, it's what suits people and where the jobs are. All these, the media studies, the psychology, things like, there just aren't jobs. This is not how you go and get yourself a job. It's just absolutely crazy. But there is a very, very snotty attitude to people who don't go to university from a lot of people who do. That idea, oh, well, if you're not clever. I'm sorry, and again, that attitude, it came out very much during Brexit, that whole idea, people who voted for Brexit were less likely to be university educated. They were also more likely to be older at a time when like 10 or 15% of the population went to university, not 50%. But the idea that somebody who didn't go to university has worked all their life and done, really well in life, and the idea that who can, by the way, probably do mental arithmetic 20 times better than some of these youngsters who supposedly got a top degree from a university. I mean, it's so insulting. So insulting.
It was Tony Blair that changed this, made it that everyone had to get to university, and then instead of he put a status with it.
It was a way of getting people off the unemployment rolls.
Well, yeah, but he put a status.
You just go on the unemployment rolls with 50k's worth of debt.
Exactly. He tried to put some form of status with it, and then undermine the class system and or tied into the class system.
And then he brought in tuition fees for people who are in debt for years.
He's confused the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything and everything we're talking about. Lots of you already on the phone lines right now. We'll get your calls up next. After that, we'll talk to the brilliant, the wonderful Brendan O'Neill. This is Talk.
the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk 10:32 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. Vivian is in Devon. Hello, Vivian. What do you want to say?
Hello. Andy Burnham saying, hope in everyone's heart. Well, I'm hoping to God I don't get migrants next to my middle-class house.
Why not?
Because we have worked all our lives for this house.
Yeah.
My husband had a very demanding, stressful job.
Yeah.
This is his reward.
Yeah.
And now it's going to be made almost worthless by some illegal migrants. I'll call them illegal because they broke into the country.
They are, yeah.
Yeah. And we'll be paying them to make our house worthless through our taxes.
Yes, that's the bit that really sticks in the craw, isn't it? It's like we're paying for the cost of the people who will be doing damage to us.
Yes.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, it does. And I can certainly say, I can tell you just from my street, just in terms of even, you know, where I know that I know the buildings that are houses of multiple occupancy in a very, very nice leafy street. And you can see there's always rubbish outside. No one looks after it. You know, everything's dirty. There's and you know, you just, you know, they're the ones who leave the rubbish bins out for 6 days a week. You know, no one cares.
It's not theirs. It's not their responsibility.
Yeah. You always want to, if you work, you always want to live next door to people who work. 'Cause it means they don't have parties till 4 in the morning as well. No. It's these little things. And again, I look, here's my thing. So I go to work every day so I don't have to get buses. I spent enough years of my life having to get buses. I hate getting buses. I hate the people on buses. I hate the feral school children on buses. I don't want to have to get buses. I consider it a great privilege in my life. I never have to get a bus. And one of my things I'd also work for is not to have illegal migrants living next door.
Yep. And also less money to leave when we die.
Yeah, because you've got a right to do that. Yeah, no, Vivian, I think you speak for the nation, as you said. Andy Burnham promised, I want to give you hope in every heart. Yeah. And when he said growth in every postcode, I don't think he meant growth in the number of asylum seekers either. Daniel is in Epsom. Good morning to you, Daniel.
Morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. How are you doing? What do you want to say?
Well, I want to talk about Burnham because he's saying that, well, it's fair if we distribute the illegal invaders around the country. I'm sort of sitting there thinking, you're so out of touch with, like, the British majority. Yeah. We don't want them here. We send them home. We don't want them here.
We don't want them in hotels. We don't want them in poor areas. We don't want them in richer areas. We don't want them, full stop.
I'm not being funny. We can actually see the decline around us all the time.
Yes.
You know, we can see the decline and degradation. We can see the mass immigration from the third world. It's destroying the fabric of Britain. It's ruining our home. We don't want it. We've never wanted it. Stop distributing them anywhere and just get rid of them. I don't care what you have to do. You work for us, and the British majority do not want them here. Send them home.
Here's my thing. I think every single government has been elected and promising to deal with this issue, and every single government that fails gets thrown out. That's my belief. I genuinely don't believe that Andy Burnham is going to win a general election, whether he calls it in 3 weeks' time or in 3 years' time, simply because he will not grip this issue. And no government that fails to grip this issue is going to get elected.
I can't believe there's still people out there voting Labour and Conservative. I don't understand it. We've all seen, like in 1997, this country was in the black, it had zero public debt, right? And the population was about 50 million. Now it's 72 million and we owe £3 trillion, OK? There's been a massive decline in this nation in the last 28 years, right, since 1997. Country, no one else is going to do anything. No one else is going to lift a finger. Julia, you know, they're now talking about there's not enough water.
Yeah. Why not? Because you haven't built anything. No, exactly. No, Daniel, I think a lot of people understand your sort of despair. You know, the problems with the country. Thank you for that. We can't stray too much into any specific politics, obviously, because of events happening today, by-election-wise. Of course, everybody. 10:37 is the time. I'm going to take a quick break. Up next, chief political writer at Spiked Online, Brendan O'Neill.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back. 10:39 is the time. Let's go straight to Brendan O'Neill, Chief Political Writer at Spiked Online, who joins us to talk about all the big stories. Morning to you.
Hi, Julia. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. Well, not that well, actually. Thank you very much, because, you know, we've got a government yet again hasn't got a clue what it's doing and not listening to the people. One illegal migrant landing on British shores every 14 minutes since Labour took power. It's gone down. It's gone down in the last year, over the previous year. We have to point that out. But we are also looking at, you know, these people being stuck here for many, many years. No expectation that Andy Burnham, like Keir Starmer, is going to grab the bull by the horns and deal with getting out the ECHR and the like and deporting all these many, many tens of thousands of young men who arrive here. And now we're told we have to share them out rather more fairly as a point of principle, according to the Prime Minister's spokesman, because basically it's not fair that poor areas get these people and richer areas somehow are getting away with it, although my area certainly isn't. Even though it's going to cost taxpayers more, it's the right thing to do. Do you think that's right?
Absolutely not. You know, one good thing about Burnham's insane proposal is that it's a tacit admission that illegal immigrants are a pain in the neck. That's what he's basically confessing. At last, we have a government official admitting that it's true that having 800 men from God knows where bust into your community overnight is a burden. Yeah. That's what they're finally admitting. The thing that ordinary people have been saying for years, that this is a real problem. It causes antisocial behaviour, crime, tension. Finally, we can admit that, because what Burnham is essentially saying is that this burden can't be borne by working class communities alone. We have to share out the pain. We have to share out the misery. We have to inflict it on middle class, green and pleasant little towns.
Whereas, of course, if these are all genuine asylum seekers and, of course, highly qualified engineers and doctors, I mean, you'd think, wow, you know, these are all the lucky areas that are getting all these fine, young, upstanding members of the community arrive. Yeah, no doubt they're picking litter and helping old ladies across the street.
Absolutely. So we now know that it's not true that these men are vulnerable victims from war-torn lands. They are economic opportunists. They're fighting-age men. And we know that they don't enrich our nation. It's just true. It's not racist to say that anymore. And I think
it never was.
It never was. It never was. It's just the truth, and people should be allowed to say it. And I think Burnham has kind of admitted that it's true.
By accident, though. He wouldn't...
By accident. Entirely accidentally. And of course, it doesn't deflect from the fact that what he's proposing is insane, because there's the fatalism of his proposal. What he's basically saying is there's nothing we can do to stop the boat, nothing we can do to police our borders, nothing that this nation that once ruled the waves can do to stop some dinghies from crossing the channel. So instead, we're going to inflict pain on you. You are going to have to pay the price of the state's failures. That's what he's saying to middle-class communities. I think it's gross.
Yeah, and pay a higher price. And again, it's this idea that middle-class communities need to accept more people, as if working-class communities were accepting people. And we know the voters of Makerfield made it very, very clear to Andy Burnham when he stood in that by-election. He said in the speech the day after he won the seat, you know, that's one of the things that was raised with him, was that, you know, people were saying, you know, all these houses are multiple occupancy. We know the impact it has on the street. I know it happens in my street. I've got the hotel at the end of the road. And again, I keep pointing out, I live in a smart area, and we've got them. So the idea we're not all sharing that pain is, frankly, a load of nonsense. Again, we were talking a bit earlier, Philip Ingram and I, that actually we do understand now why people are genuinely fleeing for their lives, really, from France, because it turns out they've got worse. I mean, two of the worst words ever in the English language when put together: volunteer clowns performing to them as they try and await their dinghies in Calais. I mean, I think, frankly, we should offer refuge to these men.
That image of a clown entertaining these illegal immigrants, these young men, these men who are seeking welfare and opportunistic events in Britain, I thought those images summed up the modern West. It summed up that we have become clown countries, where we are basically dancing around, or expected to dance around, at the sight of these men barging into our country and moving into communities. It really summed up just the suicidal nature of Western Europe right now, where we have thousands of men crossing various borders in Europe every single day illegally, some of them with ill intent. And what are we doing? We're dancing around, we're putting on a red nose, we're dressing up like clowns. That is Europe summed up. It's really quite frightening, actually.
It really is terrifying, isn't it? I mean, we were saying, like, if it was mime as well, oh my God. Well, I mean, I'd help them onto the dinghies myself. Let's also talk about another story you and I have both written and talked a lot about over the years, which is, climate change. Obviously, we're in the middle of a fifth heat wave. I don't remember there being any breaks between the heat waves. One long heat wave, we got a little bit of respite for a few minutes when the sun vaguely-ish disappeared for a bit for the solar eclipse yesterday. But we've got wildfires. Now, I must correct myself because wildfires have increased this year, but the actual amount of territory in the world and across Europe, including Britain, where we've seen wildfires, has actually gone down. The trend is largely down over the years and over the recent decades, not up. You wouldn't guess that from watching BBC, Sky, ITV or reading your papers these days. But there's now, according to some of the experts, a clear link now, they think, between sort of eco policies, rewilding policies and the record number of fires, and a call for shops to stop selling, those sort of, temporary little you throw away barbecues isn't perhaps going to stop the problem.
Yeah, exactly. This is a story as old as time, which is that very often, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we often see this. We often see a situation where eco measures turn out to be problematic and turn out to cause some of the problems that they're supposed to be solving. I think the rewilding and the wildfires is a good example of that. But, the whole discussion around this heat wave is driving me round the twist. I think it's actually illustrated the lunacy of climate change alarmism, because even if we take everything they say as being true, even if we accept that this kind of heat is man-made and it's probably going to get worse over the next few decades, what are we supposed to do? Go back in time and stop the Industrial Revolution? Or, fly to China and instruct the communist government not to build any more factories and airports? Right, okay, so let's say industrialization causes these problems, then we have to find ways to deal with them. We need an air conditioning revolution. Yep. We need to be much better at managing wildfires. We need to get serious about acclimatizing Britain to a warmer environment. And instead, what we get is all this self-flagellation about modernity and progress and industry and how horrible it all is. I think what we're seeing is the exposure of climate change alarmism as a real folly of the middle class. Oh,
absolutely. And again, even if it were the case that man was contributing at all, or even more than just a little bit, towards global warming, which I think, again, by the way, everyone, that is still just a theory. Yeah. Even if that were the case, it would still be worth it, because in terms of the quality of life that people have, the length of life that people have living, you were lucky if you didn't die in childbirth, if you didn't die in the first 12 years of your life, if you made it past the age of 12, you were lucky if you lived to 40 or 50, lucky, 100 so years ago. And now people are routinely living to not just 70, 80, even 90 and 100. I mean, people, in terms of everything we can do, the quality of our lives, the freedom for women, a washing machine, one of the greatest things that's ever happened to women's liberation. I mean, I'm not joking, genuinely serious. The car, the aeroplane, I'm sorry, the computers, this little gadget I've got in my hand, this iPhone that has the entire world's knowledge in one place. These things are so worth 1.5 degrees of warming.
I could not agree more. I mean, the narcissism of these people saying, oh, no, it's really hot in my local park in Hackney, therefore we have to...
Put a fan on.
Yeah, therefore we have to wind back all those wonderful developments that you've just outlined there. But also the other thing, on top of the fact that life is getting longer and healthier and freer, there's the fact that fewer and fewer people are dying in natural disasters.
Or from starvation, because we've got
or from
more
starvation, or even from heat waves. And I'll tell you why, because humanity has learned to deal with these things. Look at a place like Singapore. Singapore was a place where you couldn't work 60 or 70 years ago because it's so swelteringly hot. Yeah. They had an air conditioning revolution. Now it's an incredibly productive country. We just need to get a grip. We need to acclimatise. We really do celebrate these things.
We really do, absolutely. Look, I've not got much time. Keep this as brief as you can. I know this is another 20-minute conversation in real life, but I must ask you about Jason Ardern. He resigned Wednesday last week as a Cambridge professor, basically exposed as a complete Walter Mitty character. I know you've written about him, I've written about him, but Cambridge's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Deborah Prentice, has described him, the Jason Ardern fiasco, as an aberration. It says they launch a full investigation into his appointment and saying they need to sort of perhaps look at other ways ways to make appointments. What do you make of that?
Not an aberration at all. And we know it's not an aberration because the entire academy fell for his alleged grift. And so it sums up the problems within the university, within the media, within those sections of society. This isn't an aberration. It's an illustration of the problems that we face.
100%. Brendan O'Neill, always great to get you on. Chief political writer at Spiked Online. Quick response from Philip Ingram to any or all of that?
Well, he's 100% on the ball. Brendan always is. You know, there's so much misperception as to what's going on because we still have politics by soundbite, and it's populist soundbite.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely. 10:49 is the time. I'm going to take a quick break. Up next, former ONS statistician, such a hard word to say, Jamie Jenkins on the latest economic figures, NHS waiting times and more. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:53 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, joined right now by a former statistician with the Office for National Statistics. Oh, I managed to do it without taking my teeth out then. Jamie Jenkins joins us. Good morning to you, Jamie.
Morning, Julia.
Thank
you always
you.
do well saying that word.
Anyway, we got through it. I don't have to say it again now. Let's talk about economic growth. 0.4% between April and June. That's the second quarter of the year. Are we all cheering from the rafters because the economy is going like guns, or is this rather slow?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit better than what some people had thought, Julia, to be honest. And maybe we need to be putting a phone call into Rachel Reeves and Starmer. Let's get them back and get them.
Seriously, don't. I'm having post-traumatic trauma from that thought.
Yeah, but no, it's a little bit better. What's driving it is the services industry, and underneath that, because most of the British economy now is made up of services, and if we look underneath the bonnet of the services industry, it's a bit of computer programming, information, communication. So there's probably a bit of the AI race is helping to drive a little bit of the growth here. But when you compare us to some other countries, well, obviously Canada is in the G7, they're growing at double our rate, but we are ahead of some of our European neighbours. But just saying 0.4% growth is better than what's going on in Europe isn't really a good outcome. You know, it's like saying that you had an E in maths in school and you made it an F. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a great result for you.
Yeah, exactly. Let's be reasonable. And when we think back, this sort of growth back in, I don't know, the 90s, the 80s and 90s, people would have been going, what? This is terrible. This is a disaster. And now we're going, oh, well done. And often we're told, well, it's better than what the experts predicted. With all due respect, the experts predict it wrong every single time.
Yeah, it's always doom and gloom from the experts. And the one thing with predictions, Julia, they're nearly always wrong. And but I think, when we look under the production was flat, construction was up slightly, and the services industry did okay. But as you say, what you've got to put this into the wider context. These are the economic figures, the kind of the sum of all the goods and services in the economy. But the labour market's still weak. You can see borrowing figures are continuing going up. So if you look at our borrowing figures, and we always look at them as a percentage of GDP, they're actually just getting higher and higher and higher. And the best way of getting borrowing as a percentage of GDP down there's a few different ways of doing it. You can either cut the borrowing, or you can grow the economy more. And that's the thing, these numbers, okay, 0.4% is better than nothing. It's better than going backwards, but it's not a massive number when you look at the historical context.
No, it's not. It's just simply not. It's not going to get us out of all our debts. It's not going to grow the economy. It's not going to grow those jobs. So, there's all these young people go, I'm going to go off to get my A-level grades, work really hard, go to university, get a job. Well, let's see what jobs there are after you. Now, we know, things like the World Cup, that can boost, some figures in hospitality, but we also know things like shops miss out when the June sort of is included in these 3 months, saw some of the first sort of the heat waves, and people basically can't be bothered to go to the shops when it's hot, can they? They just, they haven't got the urgency, and people just do a little bit less. So that can hit the economy. But of course, the economy will have been hit also by the increased energy costs from the Iran war. Yeah,
and that's ultimately when you compare, say, now to what we had many, many years ago, when we were growing a lot faster. I think, and if you just basically, if you get the energy costs down for the country, and we've got obviously Miliband's moved on, but we've probably got another Secretary of State who's as bonkers as he is. If you get your energy prices down, because they're still obscene compared to what they were back in 2019, Julia, we talk about giving tax breaks or trying to give benefits out to people. Just getting the energy prices down for everybody will basically mean loads more money in people's pockets. And what will they do? They'll go out and spend. That'll go around the economy. It'll create more jobs. So actually fixing the energy crisis in this country with our energy security is the most obvious thing for me to actually get the country growing faster.
Absolutely, and so easy and obvious to do, exactly. Can I also ask you, used to do health statistics in particular as one of your areas of expertise at the ONS. We've got the latest figures on NHS waiting times. What does that tell us?
Yeah, so they are down slightly again, Julia. So I think we've now got, they're still high.
We've killed a few patients off on the waiting list. Yay!
Yeah, so we've got 7.3 million kind of pathways, because one patient, for example, could have 2 different things they're waiting for. So it's about 6.2 million people in England now waiting. And the target, let's put these figures, because they're coming down slightly. They're not coming down very fast. What you've got to remember is you've got nearly 2 million people get added to a waiting list every month. And then they do treat a lot of people, and nearly 2 million people have come up.
And it depends what you're waiting for. Is it a knee operation, or is it just an appointment with a doctor?
Yeah, there's lots of different things. So in the last month, I think there's been a small reduction in the waiting list. But you've got to remember as well, some people are on the waiting list and they just get removed for whatever reason. They might die before they get treatment. So we do get about 318,000 in the latest figures have been removed. But the key thing for me on these waiting list statistics is that the target to get seen within 18 weeks, and we're a developed world, country, is 92%. And even though things have improved slightly, it's still only 66%.
And even the target is disgusting and unacceptable, and will lead to people dying. And it's not the sort of way. 18 weeks is a heck of a long time if before you start treatment for cancer. That's the difference between living and dying for some people, and that is not what's happening in other countries, and a lot poorer countries than us as well.
No, totally, Julia. And it's not just the anxiety and stress. Now, they will treat some conditions, obviously, a lot faster if they know you've got, for example, cancer. You won't be waiting as long as if you're waiting for an operation, for example. But you've got all the secondary effects that, when you've been
and people not being able to work and things like that has another impact. I wonder, though, how many of those stats are down to a lot of people going private. I know so many people who never dream of going private, never had private healthcare, and are now going, I cannot trust the NHS will treat me or my family when I'm in time of need, and they are getting private healthcare and going off those lists. Jamie Jenkins, former ONS statistician, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Lots more coming up, more from Philip Ingram, lots more top guests, lots more of your fantastic calls as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch to have your say, and we'll certainly get to more of your calls, particularly on dispersing those migrants on a point of principle, even though it will cost us all more. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. Fast approaching 3 minutes past 11. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, watching on YouTube, or any of the other ways of watching or listening, great to have your company. Do go to my YouTube page, Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, if you have missed anything from the show, or you have to pop out and you're going to miss any more. We're going to be discussing more about moving asylum seekers, or aka illegal migrants, to middle-class areas, even though it's going to cost taxpayers more, according to Andy Burnham's spokesman. It's a point of principle for him, according to him. A point of principle to pay more, to make us all take our fair share. Plus, Labour's Borders Minister has admitted that housing asylum seekers in poorer communities has created civil unrest. It's almost like no one wants these people, isn't it? Funny that. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland have received their A-levels, T-levels and BTEC results this morning. We've seen top grades in A-level have improved for the third year in a row. Yeah, we always knew that was going to happen post-COVID. Everyone got an A or an A-star for a couple of years over COVID. Then they had to batten it down, and now we're back to higher grades. But more and more young people will be able to get to their top university choices, or at least their backup university choice, even if they don't get their grades today. Probably already in the clearing system, deciding what they're going to do, because so few foreign students are now coming to the country. We'll be talking all about that. Plus, Labour's environmental policies have been blamed for turning Britain into a tinderbox after a record year for wildfires. But bearing in mind, the actual trend for both Britain, Europe and the whole world is for wildfires to be on a downward trend, not upward. Not that you would know that if you watch the likes of BBC or Sky. Lots to talk about today. Delighted to say joining me for the chat, as always on a Thursday, Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. Morning once again to you.
Morning again.
Are you coping with the heat?
I am. It's lovely.
Do you like the heat, don't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do like the heat. I do like the cold as well. I hate the sort of damp, wet,
the sort of British weather.
In
you don't like British weather?
Well, I do like British weather.
That is British weather.
No, it's not. I just dislike the dampness. But when it's hot, dry, it's lovely.
You like proper weather.
Proper weather.
Proper seasonal weather. Yeah, we're getting a lot of proper weather at the moment. And we talked a little bit earlier about the solar eclipse, which I thought was a little bit of a after the 1999 eclipse, which you saw proper during the middle of the day. Proper full on. It went dark properly. Last night, I mean, it was behind trees, to be fair. We didn't have the glasses. 2 weeks ago, I started looking for these glasses, couldn't find any. But at the end of the day, I mean, it didn't even go dark.
Yeah, well, we knew it was only going to be sort of a 95, 96%.
91% for London.
And therefore, the sun is very, very powerful. You're not going to see a lot.
Well, it turns out 9% of the sun is a lot of sun.
Yes.
My friend Bertie Spothwell, and she did tweet this, but she sent it to a group chat we're in. She said she and her entire family basically, they have this sort of equipment because they have this sort of, they do this on their farm. They had all the kids basically wearing welding masks, full-on welding masks to protect them.
Yeah, that worked perfectly well.
Here's my funny fact of this today. Apparently, by about 7 o'clock this morning, there had been a 5,000% increase on Google searches since the eclipse last night for the words "eyes hurt." Because people did look at the sun, or even you look at it with the sunglasses on, you think it's fine, or you look at it with your eclipse glasses for too long, because it does damage you. And when they say it damages your eyes, it does actually damage your eyes.
So are you saying there's more than one born every minute?
There's a lot more than one born every minute. I tell you what.
Most of them are in government. Oh.
And most of them are in government. There's also one illegal migrant every 14 minutes. Thank you for that lead-in. Landing in Britain since Labour took power. This is an article in The Sun. I mean, again, these aren't new stats, but it's just... When it's put in that context and you realise just how many people, largely young fighting-age men, arriving in the country, it kind of tells you everything. More than 80,000 people crossing the Channel in the 768 days since the party made it into number 10 under Keir Starmer in July 2024. Now, figures in the last year have gone down, but we never know why they go down and what the particular reason is that they've gone down. And is it because people thought that people might be sent back? Is it the one-in, one-out policy, putting people on BA flights to They found the most expensive flights they could to Paris to take our illegal migrants. Is it because Spain was basically offering an amnesty? And why the hell would you come to Britain when Spain was saying you could work here and live here legally? I mean, who knows? But the problem is not getting any better in terms of what happens, because it doesn't matter if it's 40,000 or 30,000 or 20,000. It is still tens of thousands more fighting-age men from war-torn countries, from countries largely that do not share our values, our attitudes to women, gay people, legality, you name it, arriving in our shores and having to be put up at huge taxpayers' expense in the billions. And the key solution to this problem, according to Andy Burnham and Number 10, is we should share them out more widely. Roughly 1 in 10 constituencies in this country has never had a housed an asylum seeker. I say, well played to you. Can I come and move there? But more affluent areas need to take them, not just constituencies like his in Makerfield. And he thinks it's a fair way to do. We all need to play our part, and middle-class areas need to accept these people. And this has been, I mean, they've doubled down on this. Number 10, speaking on behalf of the Prime Minister to one of the papers, has said yesterday, you know, he feels this is a point of principle. I mean, that's not a point of principle.
No, not at all. And your policy, 1 in, 1 out. No, I'm no mathematician, but if you send 1 out and you get 1 back in, that doesn't reduce the overall number.
And you're clever.
Yeah, and 80,000 in the 768 days this government's been in. That's costing us £3.6 billion a year.
But we have no money to buy prisons.
Well, exactly. And that's only at £45,000 a year. Other people are saying it costs £50,000 a year, so it's even more.
Well,
no
the
money to
answer
build
is
prisons.
to let them work and give them safe and legal routes, Philip. That's what we're told by the lefties.
The answer is to throw them out. I'm sorry, these are illegal migrants that should not be in this country. They've no right to be here. We get rid immediately. We hold them in secure camps when they come in. We don't let them wander around communities raping and
everyone thinks, well, that means they'll have no, they would disappear.
Yeah, that would stop them, because the incentive to be here would go away. We've even got Francois Macron turning around and saying to the British Prime Minister, he said to Keir Starmer, you need to stop the incentive for these people coming in. That's the only way to stop them coming across the channel.
Absolutely. And again, they stopped the supply of small dinghies and slightly bigger dinghies, and now they've got, even bigger mega dinghies, 49-foot dinghies. But that was such a shocking image that we saw from Monday, wasn't it? And I think that, again, that really puts focus. I mean, this is rapidly turning into, like the early release from prisons issue, a very big political hot potato for Andy Burnham.
It is very big. And for those individuals that are coming across, they see the financial rewards as worth them risking their lives to have 230-odd people on a dinghy crossing.
Well, I'm told, actually, these people, you think, well, they're crazy to risk their lives, and I've got very little sympathy for people if it all goes wrong. What were you thinking?
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I'm not. I'll get out of it. I'm abroad. I'm always amazed. People, get into a cab and don't put a seatbelt on. And go, well, fine. And then something. There was an accident. And you were injured. Well, why did you think the seatbelt wasn't necessary? Because you're in Spain, not in England. I think people are crazy. They often take stupid risks. I'm being told by people who I think would know that actually a lot of these people, they're told, oh, look, it's the channel. It's not that far and it's really flat. It's not a problem. You'll as soon as you can't see land from here, but as soon as you go a little far out, you'll see land, and it's not that far. So that a lot of these people perhaps aren't aware that this is one of the most dangerous small stretches of sea to cross. Do you think they do know?
They've all got
phones.
They've all got the latest smartphone. They've been sitting there allegedly for years waiting to get on the thing. They've got across the Med, and they've got access to Google. And they can read the press where people have died and the weather's bad. And surprise, surprise, they don't go when the weather's bad.
You make a very fair point. I'm just trying to put alternatives. Now, as we were saying a little bit earlier, though, I do think that I have a little more sympathy for these men who are, let's face it, economic migrants who are coming here. Some of them are terrorists, some of them are criminals, but people who have no right to be in our country. I think we should now offer asylum to all of them. I have changed my mind entirely because of 2 words. And when put together, these are 2 most terrifying words in the English language. They are volunteer clowns. Because in France, there are some volunteer clowns, a troupe of women in dungarees, even more scary words, who are entertaining, their words, not mine, these poor godforsaken men as they try to get on their dinghies.
I'm sorry.
I'm not joking. That's not a made-up story. That's actually happening.
I'm sorry. I've got a different solution.
What?
We go, we hire them, we pay them an awful lot of money, and we put them on the beaches in England, and they are the welcoming party for all of them coming in. And watch those dinghies then turn around and go back to France
You'll have
again.
them in the asylum hotels.
Yes, exactly.
Hello, all day,
entertaining.
every day.
Yes,
a French
exactly.
volunteer clown.
No, it's against the Geneva Convention, I'm afraid.
That would be cruel and unusual punishment, wouldn't it? That would be torture.
But let's do it. Let's do it. That would be fun.
I'm totally up for doing it.
Oh, yeah, right. Have you got any dungarees?
I'm proud to say that I'm not an owner of dungarees. I am proud to say. But anyway, I mean, it's just extraordinary. But again, it was interesting talking to Brendan O'Neill. I always love talking to him. It was fascinating, this comment that we had from the Borders Minister, who basically admitted there was a problem by basically saying, what was it? This arrival of these young men basically has led to civil unrest. This is Anna Turley, Labour's Borders Minister. It led to civil unrest in other areas, must play their part. But this is they finally admitted that it's not a great thing to have all these illegal migrants housed in your local community. They cause problems and people don't like it. So we need to shout the problem. But by that, they are admitting there is actually a problem.
Oh, very much so. And therefore what they want to do is create more local areas where people are going to rise up against them coming in. This will start to join together across the country. This is going to create an even bigger problem for the government. They're just not thinking this through. The simple solution is house them in refugee camps. I would nearly said internment camps, but yes.
I'm happy with internment camps.
Internment camps. House them in internment camps. Don't let them out into the communities. That will stop many wanting to come across the channel, and then process them out of the country as quickly as possible.
Again,
simple solution.
And if you can't do it because we're inside the ECHR, you come out of the ECHR. It's just really anyone who's.
But other countries inside the European
still manage to do it.
So
that's because we're one of those countries that obey rules. That's why a lot of people aren't bothered about problems in the EU with their rules, because they didn't bother actually obeying any of the rules.
Yeah, well, when I was NATO, there was this great thing where Germany would make the rules, France would ignore the rules, and Britain would apply the rules religiously.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's talk about also, the latest, Labour still has no plans to build any new prisons despite overcrowding, still astonishing. We've got the Metropolitan Police Chief saying dangerous criminals are being bailed every single day. And that included Simon Levy, just been jailed for the whole of his life. I mean, thank God for a double murder and rape, despite numerous rapes and sexual assaults. Oh, by the way, a sexual assault on a female prison guard when he was behind bars. She wasn't even questioned about it for 5 months, having given all the information. He was then released from prison despite this. It's just extraordinary. And the Met Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, has had to do various interviews where he's basically apologising for failures. CPS has also apologised for failures. This man basically sexually assaulted and raped on a regular basis. He went back and raped women in places he'd actually been caught raping women before. He was hiding in plain sight. Women would literally identify this guy. A lot of it was happening on public transport in London. And he was supposed to be monitored by the police. Sir Mark Rowley is saying, look, we've got to monitor 10,000 plus people. They're dangerous people. That's more than the counter-terror unit is monitoring. We don't have the resources to monitor these people. When they are tagged and they break their tags, then nothing actually happens. Well, that's a bit of a worry with all these early releases that are happening in the next few months, isn't it, under Andy Burnham? And basically saying, we're in crisis, we don't have the resources to do this. And as we were saying a bit earlier, we know that the police aren't dealing with things like mobile phone crime and bike crime and things like that. But you think the argument they give is, well, we're busy dealing with more important, serious crime. No, they're not. They're not doing with that either.
Our criminal justice system is broken, and whenever the head of the Metropolitan Police is turning around saying he doesn't have the resources to look after all the dangerous criminals that are out in the communities, what is the government policy? To let more dangerous criminals out in the communities early from their sentences. And what they're not doing is they're not unmothballing the 5,000 plus prison places that are mothballed. Surely it would be easy just to get the duster out, get the mothballs out, reopen them again, and put staff in there, because they tend to be co-located or closely located to current prisons. There are simple solutions out there.
Again, yes, you might want to put the low-risk offenders in there, but again, I thought we didn't have low-risk offenders behind bars. And if we have got any low-risk offenders, why the hell are we planning to release hundreds of people who've been convicted of manslaughter?
When the head of the Metropolitan Police says he doesn't have the resources to actually look after them, and the rest of the criminal justice system hasn't got the resources to do it. It's just completely and utterly broken, and there's nothing
I've often said
logical
this.
coming
It's
through.
like, often with government, whether it's Tories, whether it's Labour, coalition, whoever it is in, the amount of times you find yourself saying, does the left hand know what the right hand's doing? Does the left hand know what the left hand's doing?
No,
I mean,
they haven't got a clue.
the lack of thinking. And I've been saying and writing for a long time about Andy Burnham is a man without a plan.
Yeah.
He has no plan at all.
Yeah.
Every single major story that pops up, he just seems to be utterly befuddled by it. It's completely early research, completely new to him. Hadn't thought about it at all. All of these topics, did not mention at all the issue of illegal boats at all during the Makerfield by-election.
Yeah,
and then has only mentioned it briefly, only when he went to Dover the day before his holes. And even then, they're not planning to do anything.
Yeah, but he does good TikTok videos, and then he repeats policies that his predecessor had already brought in and brings them out as new, and he's doing stuff.
If you're going to cut down on vape shops having gaudy, bright, fluorescent yellow fronts on the high street, if you're going to take 86p a week off my heating bill in the winter, and he's going to stop people having those sort of takeaway little mini barbecues, disposable barbecues, as far as I'm concerned, Britain is solved. We are going to fly from now on, Andy. Thanks, Andy. Really appreciate it, mate. I mean, I'm sorry, it's laughable.
Thank God he's only the Mayor of England. Oh, no, he's not. He's the Prime Minister.
Oh, he's going to start with that again. Oh, you've been here the last few weeks. I love Philip Ingram, as I know you do. Banging on about...
But he is the Mayor of England.
Policies in England are not for... Let it go.
Oh, but
I can't believe you don't pick me up every time I say Britain and not the United Kingdom.
Yeah, but the lovely thing about Andy Burnham is the majority of his policies are only hurting the English. So the Welsh, the Scottish and the Northern Irish are going, hey, we don't care. Burnham, you're doing a great job.
The great thing is you've got your own devolved governments that are busy damaging your own country.
Oh, God, and even...
Well done,
and they're doing a better job at damaging them faster.
Let's talk about young folk, the ones who are still in education, not the NEETs. Not yet, anyway. Students getting their A-level results this morning, their T-level results, their B-Tech results. We see the top grades have gone up once again. We also know the good news is best A-level results day ever, record top grades, highest number ever getting into university. And the reason why that is happening, not just they're getting the top grades, but also because universities are not getting as many foreign students as they did. Now, why are they not getting foreign students? Have our universities suddenly become no good? Is it because lots of the teaching is now online? What's the point? Or is it because an awful lot of countries have been told, no, you can't bring your entire 18-strong family when you come here to study?
Yeah, all of that, and they're not going to get automatic work afterwards or sort of benefits while they're trying to find work.
Because universities were getting they basically get 30 grand a year from foreign student, and they get 9 grand plus a year from British students. This is why they train more Chinese and Indian doctors than British doctors in some universities.
Our universities are businesses, and they're run as businesses, and there's lots of opportunities out there. And I will say to any young people that are listening, don't worry about your grades. Really don't. If you've achieved what you've achieved, there's so many opportunities out there.
Whatever they are.
Whatever they are. I know people who have been senior directors in some of the biggest companies in the country who have got no A-levels. Yeah.
Some of my best friends left school at 16 have done very, very well. Thank you very much. Again, a lot of this, and again, I know someone, a young lady in my acquaintance who got D's in a D and E A level and managed to get on a foundation course. Went to university, is now earning an absolute sodding fortune, even in her 20s. You work hard. I would say work ethic will do you more over the years. If you need to get the grades to get to university, the odds are clearing a quarter. Clearing used to be basically for the kids who completely messed up their A-levels. You could get into a former poly on some Mickey Mouse course, but you'd get into uni, and people thought that was still worthwhile doing. It wasn't, but they thought it was. Clearing is not that anymore. Clearing is now, even top university. You're not going to get a place at Oxford or Cambridge from clearing. However, there are top Russell Group universities, proper, serious academic courses like maths, where there are 3,500 places that are available. And there'll be students who had a place at top university, but they now got better grades, and they're going to go, actually, I prefer to go to this other one that I couldn't have got into because I wasn't sure about my grades, or I was playing safe in terms of accepting. I can now go to that one, and that place becomes free. So you've got a really, really good chance if you want to go to uni. The main thing is, what are you studying at university? I'm amazed by how many people I know whose kids, they say, well, they're going to go to uni, they don't really know what they want to study, they don't really have a plan, and they end up doing some Mickey Mouse course. At least if you don't know what you're going to do a course that's academically solid that will set you up, and future employers will go, oh, well, you've done I don't know,
or
maths or history, a really solid course, not something. It's sort of like, well, why are you studying that?
Or sit down and say, is uni really
the right
for
thing?
me? Am I going to come out with this massive student loan? There are many more paths to go out there, and a lot of the time you can be much more successful in doing it.
Oh, absolutely. And without 50 grand's worth of debt, and with all that
at least 50 grand's worth of debt.
Yeah.
And
we need to cut down.
The standard of teaching in the country is going down. You just look at the.
Well, you don't get teaching in most of these universities.
Just look at the scandal around Cambridge University at the minute. It's supposedly our best university in the country.
Yeah.
Or one of.
I think you're fair.
I was saying that deliberately, knowing that you'd gone to Oxford University. It's one of these great stir the pot comments to put out.
Northern Ireland. No, but the thing is, this is the issue. I mean, the debt that people are getting into for something that a piece of paper that often isn't actually much use to them in terms of their future career. I think it's obscene, and I think most people would now agree that 50% target people going to university, from which Tony Blair began, was basically, it was just a scam to get people off the unemployment rolls.
Oh yes,
and it doesn't people do anything.
And it's destroyed more lives.
I don't approve of tuition fees anyway. I find it absolutely extraordinary, this idea that, private school is absolutely terrible, but we should absolutely get a load of young people into massive debt. And it used to be the case. There was a point early on, it was £1,000 a year. It was small debt. And it basically didn't grow until after you'd left university, and even then at a tiny rate. And basically, there was even a point, I think, where, even if you had parents who were rich enough to pay for uni fees, you were better off getting the loan and then being paid off afterwards, because it basically was free money. Well, not under, what was it, Plan 2? And I know a lot of my colleagues here, the young folk here in the office are on that plan, basically paying an absolute fortune every single year on not high wages, but having to pay back that loan, which started accruing interest before they'd even, the second day at uni. But the trouble is that debt is way higher than inflation, and they're paying a fortune, and they've not paid off a single penny of their debt. Their debt has got higher because they're not even paying the interest.
And then after a period of time, what happens? It's written off, and written off means that the taxpayer's paying for it, and all this. So at the end of the day, the taxpayer pays the universities up front. So
they're guaranteed to get it.
They're guaranteed to get it, and this is the government taking it back again. The taxpayer ends up paying for it.
Also, we are giving, I think it's about $2 billion a year in loans to EU students who, under the Brexit deal, are entitled to get these deals. And of course, then they go home, and you're going to be really shocked by this. Quite a lot of them don't pay their debt, and we don't know where they live. So we can't track them down and get the debt back, and so we end up paying. So we literally have our own youngsters going to university getting 50 grand's worth of debt, while we're paying for a load of Polish and Romanian and French kids to get an education for free at top universities. I still want to make this point. I do it constantly because it really is worth knowing. The EU used to have, I think it was, was it 5 universities in the top 20 in the world, and then we had Brexit, and then they had none. Okay. We have top universities, but we also have a lot of really rubbish universities where you've got vice chancellors who basically people who run the show as opposed to a figurehead who are absolutely useless, who are on vast six-figure salaries, and they are basically taking the mick. And a lot of young people are being sold an absolute lie.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely outrageous. What do you make of Kemi Badenoch? She announced the party's policy back in February, basically saying that they would cap student loan interest at inflation as measured by RPI, which is the one that most people use. The government just uses CPI, which is a higher one. Basically, they capped it at that, but it was 6%. It's a complicated thing, but basically saying they need to absolutely stop this unfair tuition fees thing. Yeah. We haven't heard anything from Burnham about it yet, though.
I think the whole student loan scheme needs to be reviewed. Why don't they turn around and say, if you go to university, you will automatically have 2% on your income tax for your first 20 years. For your first 20 years of paying income tax, that's it, bust. So if you earn an awful lot of money because you're doing really well, then you're paying a lot more. Do something like that.
Why penalise the people who work hard?
Because if they want to come up with something where you're going to get some form of payment back for people going to university, and it's not everyone paying for it.
This was Tony Blair's line. It's like, why should the cleaner have to pay taxes to fund someone to train the doctor to go to university? Because when the cleaner By the way, the cleaner is not a net contributor. They're not earning enough unless they are running the cleaning company to be paying enough tax. Nothing wrong with great job, more useful than what I'm doing sitting here right now. But when they're not earning enough to pay enough tax to actually pay for their own costs, even from public services, than they are for anyone else. But because when they need to have a doctor, they want somebody who's trained as a doctor. It is in our interest to have people who are trained up in skills. It is not in our interest to have a load of people with media studies degrees and psychology degrees because they couldn't think of something else to study.
But this is where people are going into medicine, people are going into dentistry, people are going nursing and all the rest of it. They should not. We should, as part of their contract, pay their and then
you have to contribute. You have to work in the NHS for a certain number of years.
Exactly.
Oh, I would absolutely support
and all the rest of it. There's so many ways we could redo this completely. But I object to paying taxes for free school breakfasts.
For people who can perfectly. By the way,
exactly.
There is no one in this country who can't afford to give their kids breakfast.
There's no such thing as anything for free. So why should I have to pay for someone else's kids? In the same way that if someone chooses to go to university, unless there's that contributing back to society, which a 5-year or 10-year contract.
I think there's an argument that we could say that the public, the taxpayers will contribute, or some other cheaper loan system for degrees that we need.
Yes. Yeah,
degrees we need,
but not golf course management.
If you've got certain grades, but they'll go, but more private school kids or wealthier kids will get those. It's like, well, no,
smarter kids will.
Smarter kids will get those. Sorry, or the kids who worked hard. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that, and your thoughts, of course, on being fair and a point of principle for us all sharing out the asylum seekers that none of us want. Do give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Your call's up next. This is Talk.
Sex basis on biological sex, and therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic...
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. 11:31 is the time. Let's go straight to your call. So 344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Graham in High Wycombe has done just that. Hello, Graham.
Hello again, Julia. Just a quick personal story on the sharing out the migrant and Andy Burnham and his so-called principles. Yeah. My father-in-law lives in Piddington.
Yes.
I stood at the end of his garden. It's less than 200 metres from this asylum centre. It's one field.
Yeah. Did he vote to leave the UK? That's a secession vote?
Yeah, he did. He and his wife both did. And he's now retired. He's worked all his life.
Yeah.
And he bought a house there 2 years ago, hoping to be able to enjoy his idyllic, retirement in a nice, quaint English village.
Yeah.
He now won't be able to sell that house if he wants to. He's trying to build on it at the moment. Yeah. Good luck with that. Is he supposed to fork out for security at the build up a gate at the bottom?
I would if I were him.
I certainly would too. And there's nothing for them in this village to do. And Andy Burnham's got his principles. So, if I may, let me reiterate our principles in response to him. He does not have the right to essentially destroy a way of life for an entire village of people.
Yeah.
That's against our principles. It goes against fair play. Every one of these asylum seekers has broken the law. Immigration Act 1971, Article 24. It is against basic British fair play and justice, which is the cornerstone of British principles, to pay for people who have broken the law in such a flagrant way. Yeah. Every single one of them should be detained immediately and deported immediately. And these are the people in this village who have paid probably the upper tax band that have kept our welfare state going.
And paid, by the way, paid for all the migrants who've been here. But I like to say, you're saying this is going to destroy a way of life for this village. But they've already destroyed the way of life for many, many towns and city centres. Isn't it your father-in-law's turn to have his way of life destroyed? So we all share out equally.
Well, adding one more wrong to all the other wrongs doesn't make a right.
Couldn't agree with you more.
There's no facilities for them, and it's destroyed his life. And this is the thanks they get for propping up the healthcare system, education, defence.
Doing the right thing.
40 years of
Doing
work.
the right thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, no, honestly, Graham, every single word. Thank you very much indeed. We should send that to Andy Burnham. Have a little listen, mate. Linda is in Dorset. Hello, Linda. What do you want to say?
Hi. Yeah. If these people coming to claim asylum are sort of, they really are asylum seekers, why don't they fly to the country they want to go to and claim asylum there?
Linda, it's a bit of a fuzzy line. You say, why don't they what?
Why don't they fly to a country they want to be in, a lot cheaper, and claim asylum there?
Well, there are plenty of places they pass through on the way. And bearing in mind, most of these people, if they are fleeing war, genuinely are fleeing war, most of the people in their families, their friends, their local village, their town, will have actually gone to the neighbouring country. That's what happens. Ukrainians went to Poland and Romania. People from, South Sudan went to Sudan, or, that's what happens.
Yeah. So, or the people coming illegally on the boat, why can't they be taken to, like, Heathrow or somewhere, to the asylum centre where their claims will be done quickly?
Because of human rights.
Yeah, you say it bloody are.
It always comes back to it. I still think, even if we left the ECHR, Linda, that they would, the human rights lawyers who are so intent on basically trashing this country, that they would find another way. We just literally need to go, no, we're just going to get this done. Linda, thank you for that. Quick response from Philip Ingram.
Yeah, well, when government by policy is putting the rights of the asylum seekers ahead of the human rights of the citizens of this country and the taxpayers in this country, the government is getting it so badly wrong.
Absolutely.
And we need to deal with that.
That said, if they are fleeing the volunteer clowns in dungarees,
then we import the volunteer clowns to scare them the other way.
You make a fair point. I'm just saying, it still chills me to the bone. 11:36 is the time. Up next, we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to the director of the Higher Education Policy Institute, Nick Hillman, about the A-level results. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, 11:38. Let's talk about those A-level results that have been coming out this morning, plus T-levels and B-Tech results for youngsters in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Scotland, of course, already had their higher results earlier this month. Nick Hillman joins us. He's director of the Higher Education Policy Institute. He's also a former government advisor under the Conservatives. Good morning to you, Nick.
Good morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Well, once again, we're getting more youngsters getting the top grades. We're getting more youngsters into university. Is this an unadulterated good news story?
Well, it's an unadulterated good news story for the people who are opening their envelopes and their emails and getting exactly the results they need. And 250,000 young people have now had their university places accepted and are getting on in life in the way they hope to. You are right, I think, to shine a spotlight on grade inflation, because there was massive grade inflation during COVID. It then came down, and it's now creeping up a tiny bit. The exam boards say they're confident it doesn't reflect lower quality, and it may be partly because maths is especially popular at A-level this year, and maths is one of those subjects where the answers tend to be right or wrong.
Yeah,
and,
you can either do it or you can't.
Yeah, and so there may be reasons, but we certainly need to keep an eye on it. I mean, if Michael Gove was still the Secretary of State for Education, I suspect he would be wanting to be all over it. And it'll be interesting to see what the new Secretary of State how she responds to it.
And it is extraordinary now how many courses do seem to routinely expect A grades as the norm. From students who didn't consider themselves to be sort of top students. It does seem to be, I know, the top universities now basically, they're offering 3 grade A's, but they basically expect 3 A stars now. And we constantly see that inflation. But it's in everyone's interest, is that youngsters want the top grades, and a lot of them are working. They spend a lot of time now just working. They're taught to the exam. That's good for the teachers, good for the head teachers, good for the school's reputation, and the parents want it. There's no one who doesn't want it on the day those results come out.
Except employers.
Exactly.
Because employers need to know the difference between different students. And of course, that's why the A star was invented. I mean, at one level, having an A star is absurd. A is meant to be the top grade. Yeah. You had to invent another top grade. And of course, the GCSEs, they had to move to a completely different numbering system. So you're right that if you have too much inflation, the grades become less meaningful.
Yeah. Now, look, a lot of people, and I've been messaging with friends and family members about their youngsters, and pretty much all of them have got their grades, or if they've missed it by one, they've got into their uni of their first choice. Some, though, looking at clearing. And clearing, I mean, certainly in my day, I mean, I'm going back a long way, was something, you'd really flunked your grades and you would be lucky scrabbling around for a place at some sort of, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be snotty here, a former poly that really wasn't up to scratch just to get in anywhere. But actually, now, top Russell Group, this is the top elite group of universities. They're offering 3,500 places on top courses. There are lots of places available. And I'm stunned by this to see this morning. 1 in 4 places at uni now decided by clearing.
Yes, there's 27,000 courses in clearing, and you're right, they cover universities of all types and descriptions, and that stigma that used to be attached to clearing is just not there. I mean, some people don't even enter the process until clearing. They decide late on they want to go. Other people enter clearing now because they've got better A-level results than they expected, and they want to change their mind. Some do it because they've decided they want to live at home, not go away to study. And UCAS did some research to see if they should rename clearing, because people like you and me remember its stigma. But young people don't know it used to have a stigma. So it's just not seen like that.
It's just how you get to know. I was actually messaging with a friend of mine saying, this morning, no, but clearly there won't be any good courses left. I went, no, you're wrong. And I was able to send her the stats. No, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true. But people should still act quickly, because those places will go in the more popular courses.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If they know what they want, pick up the phone to the university.
Yeah.
And get
now, look, 4 out of 10 young people are, they'll be getting A-levels this summer. But of course, we've also got hundreds of thousands doing these vocational and technical qualifications as well. What is your advice? I mean, you're an expert in this field for a lot of young people, because we have this constant thing where eventually every politician, every political party, and Andy Burnham's done it as well as since he's come to power, saying, look, we want to focus on vocational, on technical work. A lot of kids aren't academic. I know loads of people who did not do well in school, couldn't bear that sort of learning. Very, very clever, have been unbelievably successful, earned well, had great fulfilling careers, but not in that sort of field. And everyone says they want to focus on it. But you and I both know that teachers, and parents a lot of the time, but particularly politicians and the journalists who write about these things, they're pretty snotty about this. Go, oh no, you should definitely go to university. Is university still worth it if you're going to get into 50 grand's worth of debt?
Well, for most people who go, most of the time, I would argue, yes, it is. But remember, even now that we're roughly on Tony Blair's 50% target, half of people don't go. And even people like me, who ultimately my salary comes from universities and I'm a huge fan of them. But even people like me don't think 100% of people should go. They certainly shouldn't all go at 18, 19. Some people want to come back to learning later in life. And the expensive mistakes in education are where people are studying courses they're not enjoying, they don't want to enter that profession, and sometimes it's best to just change course. And the way to stop bad decisions being made is good careers advice.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, well, that's another conversation for another day, maybe. But making the wrong decision can be very expensive. And what is different to when you and I went to university is there's a wealth of information out there now.
Oh yeah.
We know which courses deliver good outcomes, which wasn't published information years ago. So do your homework.
But again, a lot of courses people might do well because they've got a record, but actually it's because they're the people who do well as opposed to from the actual course and what they've learned on the course. What about the fact that there are more places available for British students, more youngsters who don't get their grades will be able to go to university this year because the universities are saying, we haven't got enough foreign students this year. What do you put that down to? Why are more foreign students choosing not to go to British universities, given that actually certainly our elite universities are some of the best in the world?
Yeah, there's lots and lots of reasons, but there's one reason above all else, which is Rishi Sunak changed the rules about dependence.
There we are. That's what we thought it was, yeah.
Yeah, this is particularly taught master's students, taught postgraduate students who are doing one-year MA courses, and they can no longer bring their wives, their partners, their children with them.
No, but it wasn't even that. Some people were bringing, I think particularly Nigeria, I think, was one of the worst offenders, but people were bringing on average sort of 12 people with them or something ridiculous.
It is true that students from different countries, the Chinese students, who are the biggest single group, they tend to bring no dependents with them at all.
Probably because they're not allowed to.
Well, and also they tend to be from small families and they come young, so they go back to China to get married, etc. later on. Whereas students from other countries where women typically give birth much younger,
they're bringing people. But again, you've got a load of universities that have been relying on getting 30k a year plus from foreign students, and they're going, OK, we haven't got enough places. We're running short of funds. We're told a lot of universities are close to bankruptcy. Wasn't it like a third could be close to bankruptcy, and yet vice chancellors paying themselves nice, big, very, very big six-figure salaries. Are we going to see a bunch of universities, even with all these extra British students who are only paying, a third of what a foreign student is paying, are we going to see universities going under? And would that be necessarily a bad thing?
Well, personally, I hope they don't go under. They're very often, the universities do lots of great things and they employ lots of people and they're very important economic actors in towns and cities up and down the country. But we have pretty much had one British university go bust in the last year, really, Dundee in Scotland, which the Scottish government is bailing out. We've also had Kent merging with Greenwich, and there were financial reasons behind that. We've had Cranfield merging with King's College London. So there is already a lot of action going on. None yet has absolutely fallen over the way some independent schools are falling over, but it could soon happen.
But there is a concern. I know a lot of people I know as youngsters at university, they're getting very, very little teaching. Everything's on Zoom. Even lectures are on Zoom. They're not feeling, we had during lockdown, they weren't getting pretty much anything at all. And they're feeling like we're paying an absolute fortune, getting huge amounts of debt. What are we actually getting for it?
Yes, and that is why it's so important people do their homeworks. And this year's lower sixth, of course, the upper sixth have got their results today. This year's lower sixth, they need to go on open days and ask those questions. If I come and study history at this university, how many contact hours will I get? Yeah. How big is my class size? Are the students on the course currently happy?
Yeah.
And they need to ask those questions.
Are you actually getting that? So, but shouldn't the government basically say we will not provide you with student loans for courses on at universities where less than 90% is off is offline?
Well, of course, this government and the previous government have been threatening to do that, and actually very little action has happened. But the powers exist to do that. The Office
Get back to work.
The powers exist. So there are one or two courses that have come a cropper when the investigators have gone in. But there's nothing like what happens in schools where Ofsted goes in and looks at every school regularly.
I think we need more of that. Do you think it'd be worthwhile going to do, say, sociology of education at Cambridge University for a degree, given the state of their hiring policies, given Jason Arday having to resign but having been exposed as a complete Walter-Mitty character of dubious, below mediocre academic ability?
Yeah, Julia, the reason I'm smiling is not because I think that story is funny. It's very, very serious. The reason I'm smiling is because I was myself a student once upon a time in the Department for Education at the University of Cambridge, where I trained to become a teacher a long time ago. Yeah. But it is a very left of centre place. I'll let me put it like that. And one has to question how on earth he rose to that incredibly prestigious position. I've just ordered his book because it's already out in America, and I'm planning on reading it when it arrives later today. But he's clearly a fantasist.
Yeah, we all need a novel to read on our holidays, don't we? Nick Hilbert, great to see you. Thank you so much, Director of the Higher Education Policy Institute. Thank you for that. Well, as we suspected, Philip Ingram, foreign students not being allowed to bring their dependents, so they're not coming to the university. And I can understand if someone's married with kids not wanting to come away for a year, but at the end of the day, sorry, we've got nowhere to put you.
Well, exactly.
And also, you're probably staying.
Well, and the families that'll come in will try and get benefits and everything else, and therefore that extra money that's coming in is actually being spent elsewhere in trying to look after people. Sorry, it shouldn't be allowed.
Exactly. Very interested to have that conversation. Thank you for joining us, Nick. 11:49 is the time. Up next, we are going to be talking about rewilding. Is it linked to record wildfires? That's up next. This is Talk.
Not so small boat crisis. And there's a picture of the boat, and they've got a little wording in a little circle that says picture continued on the back, and they've actually put it's so big they've put it across the front page and the back page of the newspaper. I mean, this is absolutely huge.
It is. By definition it is. And they're getting bigger all the time.
What's
not really sure that you can call it a small boats crisis anymore.
It's a 49-foot dinghy.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. 11:52 is the time. Well, you could be forgiven for thinking that basically the world is on fire pretty much every year when we get a spate of wildfires, particularly when, of course, we have hot weather and a lot of the undergrowth is basically bone dry, just basically a tinderbox waiting to be set on fire. But now we are looking at headlines suggesting that it's rewilding and environmental eco-policies that may be linked to record fires after 1,017 wildfires already this year. Is it eco-dogma that is blamed for turning the country into a tinderbox? Let's talk about this with Harry Wilkinson, who's Head of Policy at the Global Warming Policy Foundation. Morning to you, Harry.
Morning.
We had an interesting conversation with Ed Gemmell from the Climate Party yesterday about wildfires. A lot of people are under the illusion that wildfires are just, we never used to have them and now we have them and they're all over the world, Australia, California, Britain, Europe, they're getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Whereas in fact, actually, they've always happened. They just weren't on our telly boxes every single day, all over our iPhones and on social media, but also that the overall trend is downward across the globe, not upward. But in Britain and in the other countries where we have seen a spate of wildfires, nearly always there's a rather obvious explanation, isn't there?
Yes, I mean, there's a really important distinction to make here between fire weather, the kind of conditions that might be conducive to a wildfire, and then the actual, fire area burns, the fires that we see happen in reality.
Yeah.
Now, you look at the global picture, as you say, and we've seen a downward trend in wildfires, and that's really primarily to do with wildfire management. It's not an issue of what the underlying physical conditions are. Now, you look at this summer, it's been really hot and really dry. That's linked to climate change, and of course it's going to make fires more likely. However, ultimately the risks that we're presented with, we are in control of. And one of the things that we can do to reduce that risk is to have controlled burns. This is something that they've done in upland moorland areas in the UK for many, many years. It's not a new thing. But more recently, with this rewilding trend, those activities have been heavily prescribed, banned in some cases. Yeah. And that's meant that the kind of fire prevention activities that would usually happen haven't been happening. And that's why people like the Countryside Alliance have been warning about this.
Yeah, and so you end up with a whole load of undergrowth that would have been cut away, or areas that would have been natural fire breaks, like that's not done, and then you get more fires, but also you get fires that burn much more fiercely because they've got so much tinder in them. But this thing, a lot of us city towny types who don't know much about the countryside, will just say, oh, I've been to there, that forest is absolutely lovely, now it's destroyed forever. Wildfires are just that they are wild. They are supposed to happen. They have always happened. They will always happen. They are part of the process and can actually, long-term, improve the land and be a key part of the quality of the soil, can't they?
Well, that's true. I think there is a potential connection with climate change that we shouldn't dismiss, but we should just remember that there's a lot we can do to control that risk ourselves. Some people have been saying, all of this weather that we've been seeing means that we should double down on net zero. But if people are saying that, they should answer, well, how much will this actually reduce temperatures if Britain meets net zero? How many wildfires will this prevent if we reach net zero? Yeah. The reality is it will make hardly any impact.
No, it would make no impact whatsoever. I mean, the reality is...
We can actually embrace innovation here in the UK. We have world-leading universities. If we create products that are green products that the world wants to use, that could make a global impact. Instead, we're doing decarbonisation in one country. We're saying we're going to have this hair-shirted approach to net zero. It won't make an iota of difference in terms of global emissions, and we'll continue to see these wildfires.
No, I've got to be honest, again, this argument keeps being made. I don't care even if it did make a difference to global emissions, and I would like us to use cleaner energy where possible, and where it is developed and it can be used, I would suggest nuclear being the rather obvious one, we should actually use more of it, and we should certainly be fracking, again, cleaner than a lot of the gas we're using. We should be drilling in the North Sea more for oil and gas because it's rather better. I mean, okay, importing from Norway just means we're importing the oil we could have had ourselves from pretty much the same oil field and not getting all the tax benefit from it. When we have liquefied natural gas from the other side of the world, that's an insanely un-eco way of getting our energy. So none of that makes sense at all. But the reality is, you know, if human beings are responsible in any way for global warming, it's a very worthwhile price to pay for the fact that we have a better world with the Industrial Revolution and all the benefits that come with it, including longer, healthier lives and more fulfilling lives, and less drudgery, and less disease, and our ability to withstand heat, cold, extreme incidents, natural disasters and the like. There is a reason why people die in their tens of thousands in countries like Haiti and Venezuela where there's an earthquake, but they don't in Japan, you know, things like that. But also the key thing here is that the reality is, you know, a warming world is a good thing. It's a greening planet. We are seeing the planet greening, growing more food for more people, and fewer people die in the heat by a long way than die in the cold. And one of the things we are seeing, as well as warmer summers at the moment, on the current trends, we're not yet into climate, we're still dealing with weather, is also warmer winters. That's a good thing. Whenever they talk about deaths during the summer, that is dwarfed by deaths during the winter.
This is a question, I think, of pragmatism versus utopianism. You know, climate change is something we should be concerned about, but it's something that happens in the context, as you say, of a world that's improving every day. There are fewer people dying in extreme weather. There's a more prosperous world that's emerging. We sometimes blind to that in Europe and the West because our living standards haven't been increasing as fast. But the bigger picture is a really positive one. That's the context we have to see climate change in. We've got to be emphasizing growth. We've got to be emphasizing innovation. There's a positive way to do this, and there's this miserablest utopian net zero vision provided by Ed Miliband and many other politicians who have thought it's totally normal to be telling people what cars they can drive, how they heat their homes. Forcing technologies on people that aren't ready to be used.
And even one of the energy companies yesterday telling us we shouldn't have our washing machines and dishwashers on. I said I was going to do it, and I absolutely did. At 6:30, I made sure I had my washer, my dryer, and my dishwasher running. And I'm sorry, it's my money. I was going to run them anyway. I chose to run them at the time. We were told, don't have them running because we might have a surge because of the solar problem. No, 21st century. Britain, first world country, we have the right to put our gadgets on when we suddenly well want, and they're supposed to provide the energy for us. Harry Wilkinson from the Global Warming Policy Foundation, thank you very much. More from Philip Ingram. We're going to be talking to Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control up next. Don't want to miss that. This is Talk.
Across the UK. on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 2 minutes past 12 is the time. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio or watching on YouTube, great to have your company. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, of course. If you do miss anything from the show, if you've already missed anything for the last couple of hours, frankly, I'll be expecting a letter explaining why. The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show is on YouTube. Hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be discussing more how moving asylum seekers to middle-class areas will cost taxpayers more, but it's a point of principle for the Prime Minister. Really? That's your point of principle? Plus, meanwhile, nearly 2,000 prison cells that could help solve the early release crisis are empty because of fire risks. I kid you not. By the way, 2,000 prison cells, that is, by the way, quite a lot more than the number of people who are currently in prison for manslaughter, or the few hundred who are eligible for early release in the coming few months. Plus, Kemi Badenoch has claimed Andy Burnham is happy for councils to defy trans guidance on single-sex spaces, toilets, changing rooms in leisure centres and the like, and that his inaction reveals his true feelings. Well, we know his true feelings are. He said them during the Makerfield by-election, didn't he? He says it was a minority view that, in his words, trans women, men, shouldn't be allowed into women's changing rooms and toilets. No, if you think 51% of the population is a minority view, mate, you might you to work on your maths, but there we are. Anyway, delighted to say that Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer, is still with us in the studio. Afternoon to you, sir.
Afternoon to you, young lady.
We've been asking... Oh, I got a young lady. I mean, neither young nor a lady, but I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm not going to get an MBE. I'm not going to do anything useful to get an MBE.
You never know. Yeah.
What would I get an MBE for?
Collecting enough conflict packet tops.
Listen, you're talking to an absolute Blue Peter girl here. I never even got a Blue Peter badge.
Oh, well, yeah.
I've got to be honest with you. I think, and I mean no disrespect to you for your MBE, which I fully salute you as doing very, very useful work for this country. I think on balance, I'd rather have a Blue Peter badge. But that's because I'm of an era.
Well, you're of an era, yes, exactly. Yes, but you'd want one of the gold Blue Peter badges or the platinum one.
Oh, now you're talking.
Yes. We'll not park this conversation because...
I'm really showing my age. Now, Philip, look, we've been asking people to get in touch, had lots of calls. Oh, my God, your calls just get better and better and better. I mean, there's definitely some of our regular callers really need to be in Parliament. They are such good communicators and literally telling it like it is and representing people rather better than, frankly, an awful lot of MPs. But with these stats, I mean, Sun have put it down. And we also had, the numbers have gone down on illegal migrants. One illegal migrant lands in Britain every 14 minutes since Labour have got into power. It's a heck of a lot of people. It's 80,000 in total. It's gone down in the last year, yeah. But we don't know why. It could be the Spanish amnesty, who knows. But Andy Burnham still plans to move asylum seekers to middle-class areas, despite it costing taxpayers more. We're told it's a point of principle. We will have to do our part. We have to share out these people. Now, you and I have discussed this in quite a lot of depth, but I mean, it's really interesting, some of our callers just pointing out that just how outrageous this is for everybody, and also the point that, if you live in a nice area, you need to accept them. I pointed out 1,000 times already. Sorry if I'm boring you. I live in a nice area, and we've got an asylum hotel at the top of the road. 10 minutes, slow walk away from a home. Now, we're already, everyone's sharing their burden, but we shouldn't accept them. No one accepts these people. No one wants these people.
230 plus came in this week.
On one boat. That's just on one boat.
And therefore, for the next year, what Andy Burnham's doing is he's going into the NHS and the education system and all the rest of it and saying, I'm taking £11 million away from you just for that one boat. Since Labour have been in the 768 days that they've been in, 80,000 asylum seekers. Yeah. Andy Burnham's going in and saying, I'm taking £3.6 billion away from you in education on an annual basis.
Yeah.
And then they complain that we don't have enough money.
And he was saying, we have to, while we're dealing with them.
That takes 5 or 6 years. So 3.6 billion turns into your 20 billion without any difficulties whatsoever in the maths.
It's just extraordinary, isn't it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost £1, standard network rate message. So I'd like to say right now, joining us is Robert Bates. He's Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Very good afternoon to you, Robert.
Afternoon, Julia.
We do need a Centre for Migration Control because quite clearly the British government isn't one, is it?
It really isn't, actually, and I think what we are starting to see with Andy Burnham, the emergence of the mega dinghies, the changing of the routes that the migrants are taking across the channel as well, is that the people smugglers have now outfoxed the Home Office's efforts to smash the gangs. They've changed the tactics, and I think actually, despite all the attempts to focus on the fact the numbers have come down, we will likely start to see an increase. But even if the numbers did stay where they are and lower than last year, that doesn't negate the fact that actually we've already had over 200,000 cross the channel since 2018. And I do think there is a risk here of us just losing a sense of perspective of how abnormal this is. In 2018, when in the whole year, fewer than 300 crossed the channel, it was a major incident. The Home Secretary was coming back from holiday to sort of clamp down on it because it was seen as such a crisis. And, you know, 200,000, over 200,000 migrants later, and we're now being told to be grateful that...
Yeah, exactly. But also, in 2018, you see under 300, so basically the same number who turned up on that one mega dinghy that was 49 foot long on Monday. I mean, that's, you know, that's where we put it. And this ties in with the legal immigration as well. Well, after the Boris bounce, we went, well, when we all saw those figures, and apparently a complete surprise to the government, who'd handed out the visas, that whole sort of, oh my gosh, we had, I mean, it was 1.2 million people who'd arrived, 900,000 net. And it was like, oh, what a surprise, all these people have arrived. And now they're getting it down. But they're getting it down from that high. And we're all supposed to go, oh, it's not a problem anymore. We don't want hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people coming here legally, and we don't need them. And we definitely don't want tens and tens of thousands coming illegally. Which bit doesn't the government hear?
Well, I don't think they hear anything the electorate tells them, frankly. I think they just hear what that very small sect of individuals in Whitehall tells them is possible, what they're told their international obligations are. And for them, that is enough. And actually, they'd much rather annoy the millions of people in the country. If it meant that actually they were able to adhere to the more important cause of upholding human rights and all that kind of nonsense. But you're absolutely right. There is no democratic mandate for this. And I think really Andy Burnham, more so than previous prime ministers, actually is now inheriting a problem that actually he just doesn't have the wits to deal with. This is a situation that has been bubbling along, and there was a slight lull towards the end of Keir Starmer's time in Prime Minister. But it does appear to most of the public, I would think, that actually Burnham has made the situation worse. And I do think actually some of the really, really careless...
How has he made it worse?
Well, I think he is actually an individual who doesn't understand the crisis, and I think...
No, I mean, it did appear, but he didn't talk about it during the Makerfield by-election at all, and he's gone to Dover once, didn't mention it, didn't come up at all in his first speeches in Downing Street or any interviews. He does appear, like the early release scheme, actually, to be something that's only just occurred to him.
Well, quite, and actually I think his response yesterday about, we'll just house them in more affluent areas, really just him reaching for something that he picked up whilst in Greater Manchester. That was always his line in Greater Manchester. Yeah. Oh, Manchester's done enough, other areas need to take their burden. And actually, that probably is the right thing for a regional representative to do. But when you're the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, it is wholly reckless. And what it is saying to those thousands of migrants in northern France is, we're going to continue to accommodate you. But not only that, we're actually now going to start putting you in even nicer areas. And think about the message that sends... Yes. To the public at large. You know, you work hard, pay your taxes, and what we're going to reward you with is paying for an Eritrean or an Afghan to live in Knightsbridge. Yeah, I mean, it's totally offensive.
Yeah, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? And again, and even though, I mean, again, a Downing Street source says Andy feels that the current system is unfair, and as a point of principle, again, I'm not sure what the hell that principle is. He wants to see a redress of the distribution. We all want to see fewer people crossing to the UK and a decreased use of all asylum accommodation, but it needs to be fairer in the meantime. He doesn't mean for a couple of months, he means for years. And he acknowledged it would cost more money to do it more fairly, but that is what we need to do. And with that private asylum accommodation is already £2.7 billion because of higher hotel costs. But I mean, I live in a nice leafy area. We've got an asylum hotel at the end of our road, and loads of people are seeing it. We've got, Piddington in Oxfordshire? They voted to secede from the UK rather brilliantly in a vote because they're about to get, a number of legal young migrants immigrant men going to 3 times the size of the actual village's population. We spoke to someone whose father-in-law lives there. It's just a few hundred yards, this asylum centre they're looking at from his back gate. Now, I mean, what's so ridiculous is most people are already seeing the burden, but also what is fascinating, and a caller pointed this out earlier, was that Anna Turley, the Labour's Borders Minister, had talked about how there's been a huge burden on local communities and it's created real civil unrest. But even Andy Burnham himself and Number 10, they're kind of admitting, they're saying the quiet bit out loud, which is, yeah, people don't want these asylum seekers here and they are a problem. Because if they weren't a problem, people wouldn't have noticed as much, would they?
Well, quite, but I don't think they've quite actually realised that that's the logic of their own argument. I think that would be well above their capabilities. But I think actually the whole country has been sharing this burden. The asylum bill now costs us as total, including accommodation, up to £5 billion a year. That's a 6-fold increase since 2019. We spent £17.5 billion since 2020, 2021. You know,
we've spent how much?
Money. 17.5 billion. So think of all the things you could do with that. That's enough. 10,000 nurses training all the way through to the end of their career. You could solve so many problems with that amount of money if you were actually prepared to think that taxpayers' money should be spent on improving the quality of their lives. But instead, actually, that money has just been completely squandered with no real return. And that is, of course, only the tip of the iceberg, because so many of them will be given refugee status and then go on to claim welfare. 2/3 of refugees are claiming universal credit at any one time. So this is something that actually we have already done enough. The public as a whole have already done enough. So for Andy Burnham to sort of sit there and say, oh, well, we all need to start pulling our weight and playing our part as if we're about to embark on a noble national endeavour. No, I don't think anyone in their right mind would see that as an appropriate.
No, we're not all pulling together to build Nightingale hospitals during a pandemic, are we? I mean, this is the thing. People are already paying the cost. He's now saying people have to pay more to have them nearer them. And again, the people in poorer areas or people in richer areas, no one wants these people. And I think one of the other costs that's not presumably accounted for in all these Home Office figures on their costs, and as you say, when people get refugee status, they go on to benefits. That's not counted in those costs because they no longer have that status. It's a cunning way of getting them out off the stats, isn't it, and hiding their costs. But also the cost of criminality. Because we had a few debates this week about this. And again, these people are seen as a problem. And I get, my left-wing guests, James Mathewson and others, saying, well, you're all obsessed with the criminality of asylum seekers, he calls them. You don't care about, the rapists and the paedophiles and the burglars and everything who, are homegrown and they crucially always point out white. I don't think anyone cares if the person who rapes their 14-year-old daughter or steals their phone is black or white. They just don't want those crimes to happen. But the point is, of course, we've already got our wrong-uns. We don't want to import more wrong-uns. What is the evidence for the criminality rate? Because we do see a lot more of it publicised now about asylum seekers in a particular hotel being not just charged, convicted of rape or assault of young girls and the like. What is the criminality rate of these young men? Do we have any overall statistics?
So we only have it on nationality, and obviously, given how lax our legal migration system is, it's hard to differentiate those that are perhaps illegally or illegally. But what we do know is that the government's own chief migration advisor of the Migration Advisory Committee has publicly said those individuals from nationalities that are most likely to be coming over on the boats are overrepresented in sexual assault, rape, sexual offence convictions. And I think actually, the fact that the Ministry of Justice is currently going to court to try and block the publication of the most detailed migrant crime statistics really says a lot that probably they are sitting there on something that does exist and they know is going to pose a lot more questions than they're able to
And isn't it fascinating they don't want to publish this? Because we know when the stats have been published in other countries, I think Denmark has been particularly good at publishing these stats, it becomes blatantly obvious. We've seen in Sweden, all of the countries that have seen a massive influx of migrants, even actually where, they've supposedly been legal migrants or people given legal status, the criminality rate of different nationalities is vastly, vastly different.
It is, and it is across the board. And actually, the preliminary figures that we do have here, up to a third of sexual assault convictions in this country in 2024 were foreign nationals. Now, we don't know whether they are all asylum seekers, or we don't know if they're legal migrants as well. But this is the kind of information that actually the government won't want to publish, because if they publish it, it'll be inevitable that there are calls for them to start increasing the removals of foreign national offenders, rather than let them back into the community, 20,000 at the moment. It will require them to actually recognise that they need to go down the detention and deportation route with all people entering our country, unvetted men entering our country illegally, rather than just allowing them to wander around communities. But of course, actually, even crime statistics are only really the tip of the iceberg, because there will be a lot of women around the country who have experienced very, very uncomfortable situations, groups of men sat on park benches and so forth, that won't have resulted in a charge, let alone a conviction. And there's a palpable sense out there that actually there is very clearly a disproportionate likelihood of these men posing risks to people in society. We seem to be getting nowhere with the government actually coming out and fronting up to the facts that they do hold.
Well, we're just all racist, Robert, because for some reason they focus on the colour of skin as opposed to on their legal status and the threat they pose. In terms of dealing with it, I don't think there's any suggestion at all that Andy Burnham is going to deal with it. He's not promising to stop the boats, not promising to smash the gangs. We know that there are various efforts. We know that the numbers have gone down in the last year. Do we know whether it's government policy that's done that? Is it just the weather? Is it that they've managed to arrest enough people in the gangs? They've disrupted it. Are we just not intercepting enough of these boats? Are they choosing to go to Spain where they can get an amnesty as opposed to coming to Britain? What is the reason behind that? Is there any evidence that any government policy is making a damn bit of difference to this?
I think it has been a confluence, and I do think actually, we have to say that probably some of the disruption, the temporary disruption that has been posed to the supply chains has played somewhat of a role. But the real point here actually is that those operational processes are incredibly static. They're not able to adapt to when the people smugglers change their own tactics. So any success that we do see is incredibly fleeting and temporary, just because you're waiting for the next canny trick.
They move up or down the coast. They try the bigger boats. They use different tactics, and then we take another year to catch up.
Well, exactly. And whilst they're focusing on that side of the equation, they're completely neglecting what the migrants themselves are actually thinking when they decide to come to the UK, and how they can actually, the government can tackle the demand that the people smugglers are enjoying, because there's no doubt that the demand itself is not abated. It's just simply been a temporary disruption to the ability of the people smugglers to get them over. And I think, unfortunately, Andy Burnham, I think this is a really important point. Andy Burnham is an individual who, whilst Mayor of Greater Manchester, repeatedly called for Channel migrants to be given the right to work, which anyone could see would be the mother of all pull factors. He's called for newcomers to be given access to social housing and welfare, even if they should technically not have recourse to public funds because they're a new arrival. That, again, is a huge pull factor. And this is why it is very concerning that Andy Burnham just doesn't seem to even grasp what is the most basic tenet of migration flows, which is the pull and push factors. And
until we get rid of that, and again, as my guest pointed out, and Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has pointed out, even he's like, you've got to stop having the pull factors. That's what make people want to come here. What would you do? I know lots of different political parties have got lots of different policies and varying degrees of severity. What do you think the solution is? What could a Prime Minister of any political hue do today to actually change things?
The centrepiece is to start investing in the immigration detention estate, only 2,500 beds. You need to have a policy of very straightforward of detention of anyone coming into the country illegally and deportation to country of origin, like Germany has started doing with Afghanistan, or to a safe third country. I do also think the idea of maybe on humanitarian grounds having British vessels in the Channel now is something that actually, when we saw the fire a couple of weeks ago of that huge boat carrying over 150 people, British boats were able to enter French waters and turn them back to France. I think there is now a precedent there where we can say, actually, we are doing this for the preservation of life, and thus the laws of the sea do apply as well. But I think that the main bit is...
So do I have the vessels? We already have the vessels in the Channel, but having the vessels in the Channel and then turning them back to France, which is what the Reform Party said they want to do?
So taking the migrants onto the British vessel, I think actually if you start trying to tow the boats back itself, you do end up with...
But taking them onto the vessel, we already take them onto British vessels and then bring them to Britain. You're saying taking them back to France?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I don't think... I think that is something that is a message rather than a long-term centrepiece. The centrepiece, as I say, is to just make sure that we can deal with people landing on our shores. We're able to detain them all, because I think the chronic lack of investment in our actual immigration enforcement and border force for so long has been really.
And if they were detained, that would take a lot of the pull factors for the organised criminals who get paid back from people working illegally. You can't work illegally. You can't roam the streets. You're going to be sitting in a detention camp for however long, months, years. That's going to deter people. I mean, within weeks, isn't it?
Well, exactly, and actually then the people smugglers are losing their marketing now, so they're losing their ability, and a large part of what causes the channel flow, of course, is actually people that have made it into Britain, they're sat there in a 4-star hotel texting their mates back home, come on over, it's a great time over here, as well, whereas if you've got them sort of without their assets and sat in an immigration detention state, those kind of, those softer elements of the pull factor get completely cut off as well. I mean, I don't think it will be something that detention and deportation solves within, a matter of weeks and we stop seeing the crossings, but at the very least it means that the individuals aren't being housed in Britain and being given a pathway under this Labour government towards citizenship potentially as well.
Yeah. Really, really interesting to talk to you. You know your stuff, doesn't it? You never seem to know an awful lot more than the Prime Minister does, which is a bit of a worry. Robert Bates, Research Director of the Centre for Migration Control, thank you so much for talking to us. Philip Ingram, listening to all that, I mean, you kind of have head in hands, don't you? I don't know how many more times we can talk about this topic and have a Prime Minister, they'll deal with it and then not deal with it. And as you said, I think a very good point at the start, we're supposed to be grateful. Oh, it's gone down from this many tens of thousands to this number, many of 10,000. We're supposed to go, oh, great, that's a good thing.
It's all about sound bites. Keir Starmer's was smash the gangs, well, he failed in that. And Andy Burnham seems to be spread the pain. Instead of dealing with the key issues that are there, that have been pointed out time after time after time, remove the pull and
why do you think they won't? Because look, we know that Labour backbenchers. Why are so many people on the left still absolutely, having seen what's going on? I mean, they're not stupid, these people. They're not bad people. How could they not see what the rest of us are seeing?
Because they've never lived in reality.
They live in the same streets. I mean, I live in, lefty central.
They're on £90,000+ a year in Parliament. They're then getting big grants and expenses.
But they've got constituents who deal with this.
Yeah, they have.
And a lot of Labour seats are in areas where actually, they really are dealing with the real hit of this.
Yes, but they're not listening to it. They're not listening to it because they still want to be happy clappy and come by on. Everyone's good and open borders.
No one's illegal.
Because what they're doing is they're approaching things from an academic theoretical perspective, because that's how politics was taught whenever they went to the low-grade universities and everything else, because that's what they wanted, and therefore that is their belief, and therefore if they just work that belief, everyone will want to come round.
If every time there's been this debate for the last, God knows, I mean, best part of 20 years, because boats. It wasn't boats until much more recently, but it was on lorries and it was other ways. If you shout racist and xenophobe at anybody who questions whether it's a good idea to have mass numbers of people from the third world come to our country, you accuse them of being a racist. So you can't then. Well, I can't be one of those people. I'm a good person.
Yes,
so
exactly. And this is where people's theoretical beliefs and all the rest. A classic, not related to this, a classic example of where it went wrong. There's a debate over a road in Northern Ireland called the A5, which is a lot of road traffic accidents on it. They've been trying to upgrade it. They can't because of the green policies and get environment and all the rest of it. One of the Sinn Féin members of the Legislative Assembly in Northern Ireland was interviewed yesterday and blamed it on the Protestant plantations in the 1600s. Because that's his belief.
Dear God.
He actually believes that.
Yeah.
That's why we get it wrong.
Oh, does he? Yeah. 12:25 is the time. I can't wait to get your calls on this. Lots on the board. We'll get to a couple up next. 0344 499 1000 is number to have yours say. This is Talk.
not so small boat crisis. And there's a picture of the boat, and they've got a little wording in a little circle that says picture continued on the back, and they've actually put it, it's so big they've put it across the front page and the back page of the newspaper. I mean, this is absolutely huge.
It is. By definition it is. And they're getting bigger all the time.
What's
not really sure that you can call it a small boats crisis anymore.
It's a 49-foot dinghy.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:29 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000. I'm not surprised that an awful lot of you want to have your say on this issue. We're all just going to share the burden, even though Andy Burnham knows it's going to cost more to put people who are coming here to claim asylum illegally over those boats to put them in more expensive areas. Peter is on the line in Essex. Hello, Peter. What do you want to say?
Good afternoon, Julia.
Hello.
How much more can our economy stand? Yeah. If you look at, could you put the national debt ticker on your
we should, shouldn't we? Yeah.
And that will really let people know it's £5,000 a second we're borrowing.
Wow.
And paying. It's unbelievable. Our children are never, ever going to be able to pay this back. I'm 88 years old. And I've been through a couple of eclipses, as you have. But the point is now the country is being eclipsed by foreigners. And it just can't go on. They're talking about putting them into better off areas now. What about, they say the government's saving a few quid by doing it, 50 million or so. How much is coming off people's value of houses in these areas?
Yeah, as a couple of callers have said. Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's not even about money. It's about your quality of life. It's about, and what life's like in your road. If it's like, having antisocial neighbours.
I mean, how many more mosques do we need in this country?
Yeah, I mean, also there's public praying events where 3 doors down from a mosque. I'm sorry, but we need to pay attention. It's not. This is not conducive to a happy country. Let's put it that way. Peter,
and Islamisation is taking place in this country. They are doing what they've done in other countries. They get into power through local councils, then they get into parliament like they've done. Gradually they're able to take over. The next thing is to protect our women. They will all have to be walking about in these niqabs and all the rest of it.
Well, I mean, look, I did my local paper training in the East End of London, and there's been a thing there, even quite a few years ago, of basically women being harassed and non-Muslim being told, by some, extremist Muslims, you need to cover up and attitudes like that, and that is a very big issue. We've got basically blasphemy laws by the back door. We've still got the Batley Grammar School teacher in hiding. Well, who's forced him into hiding? Well, it wasn't you or me. I mean, I think we've got Sharia courts which are operating completely parallel. I do think we have an issue. I'm not full on we're not being completely Islamicised. I'm not with Tommy Robinson or Elon Musk on the full, full on panic about this. But yeah, 100%, we need to be talking more about British values, Judeo-Christian British values, and our way of life and our rule of law and our customs, and insisting that anyone who comes here has to abide by those. And if they don't like it, then there are plenty of other countries they can go to. Peter, thank you very much for your call. Colin is in Surrey. Hello, Colin.
Hi, Julia.
Hi,
good afternoon. Yeah, I was just watching your discussion with Rob Bates, and it reminded me of a video I was watching this morning on YouTube on a channel called State of the West, and it was a Newsnight discussion with Peter Hitchens, and he was trying to explain to the audience about mass immigration and crime. On the panel was Tim Fannin, Lib Dems, Caroline Flint, Labour, Liz Truss.
So it's going back a good few years, yeah.
Yeah, Owen Jones. We all know Owen Jones. And he was saying exactly what you were saying to Rob Bates. and they were mocking him and laughing at him. And he said, these people are incompetent and they're elitist and they want to be globalist and they don't give a damn about us.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Everything you said to Rob Bates is exactly the truth.
Yeah. Well, I've got to be honest here, I was writing about this and talking about this. I was working on the Sunday Express and I was writing a lot of this stuff back in like 2000. And again, you know, you can imagine the predictable reaction to all of that. And you can see it all coming, you can see what was going on. And when things have exploded even worse on every front, I think, since then. But they don't take it seriously. And that's the thing, they are globalists. And I don't think there's a big conspiracy by these people on the left. I really don't. But the fundamental thing is, these people are like the citizens of nowhere. They're the people who think we're better off run by the EU. They think we're better off run by technocrats. They think that these ghastly people in Britain should be allowed to vote. They genuinely do think that, you know, everyone should live anywhere they want. And they're out of touch.
Yeah. And I mean, so I can remember Andy Burnham from 25 years ago, as I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
And he was weak and ineffectual, and he's weak and ineffectual now.
Flip-flop Andy. You don't get a nickname like that for no reason. Colin, thank you very much indeed. 12:34 is the time. Philip Ingram, your response to that?
No, well, flip-flop Andy, two-tier care. You know, it's summing everything up. And I agree. I don't think many of the Labour MPs, as it was going on beforehand, those that have come into politics with a theoretical belief as to how things should run, and they ignore what's going on in reality, and they ignore what people are saying because they believe their theory is better than anything.
But also this idea that you know, we're the good people, those are the bad people. So anyone who expresses any concern about immigration is by definition a racist and awful and terrible,
exactly,
Islamophobe, xenophobic, bigoted, you name it. And therefore, even when it's staring them in the face that there's a problem, they can't admit it.
Exactly, and we're seeing this in their approach to business. You know, everything that they're doing is destroying business, yet they want growth.
Well, funny enough, they've never run businesses.
Exactly, they can't work out the path, and this is where nothing that they're doing is grounded in reality, and that's the problem that we have.
Could turn out to be an issue, could it not? Indeed.
Ever so slightly.
Yeah, ever so slightly. I think we're seeing that, are we not? 12:35 is the time. I'm going to take a quick break. Up next, talk to our big friend of the show, former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley, about where we are on the prisons issue. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back. 12:37 is the time. Let's talk to Peter Blexley, former Metropolitan Police Detective, about the latest on the prisons early release scheme and all the madness surrounding that. Good afternoon to you, Peter.
Good afternoon.
Great to talk to you. Look, I mean, this early release scheme story ain't going away. It's turning into quite a political hot potato for Andy Burnham. But we've still got, apparently, no plans by Labour to build any new prisons, despite the overcrowding problem. We've got nearly 2,000 prison cells sitting empty because of a fire risk, apparently. We've got a load, I think about 5,000 places that have been mothballed, which surely would be the quickest thing in the world to just get them back up and running rather than release dangerous criminals. And we've still got a Prime Minister who's trying to kick into, at least next month, the problem of the release of PC Andrew Harper's, two of his killers, against a massive, not just public outcry from his family, his widow, and indeed his mother, but also, of course, 50 different police chiefs as well. What do you make of it all and the just abject failure to do anything about it?
Chaos reigns supreme across the entire criminal justice system, unfortunately, whether it be policing at the front line, whether it be the courts, the prisons, the CPS, probation. It's all a dreadful mess. And as for Labour saying we are building new prisons, well, the only prison that's currently under construction was one that was commissioned by the Tories in 2020. Yeah. They commissioned 4. None of them are yet to come online, which is staggering, bearing in mind we're 6 years later. And quite frankly, Labour have not come up with an idea for any new prisons. They're merely piggybacking on the prisons that were signed off some years ago. So beware of the lies, basically. There you go, I've said it. The words that are deceptive at best, lies at worst. Yeah. And with regards to the advanced fire detection systems that need to be rolled out across some 19,000 cells, well, that's proceeding at a snail's pace. That means that at any given time, 1,800 cells are lying empty. With regards,
and again, so they're not actually at risk of fire. They just haven't got the fire detection devices, which we told them.
Which of course modern.
How long would that take to put in?
Well, I'm not a Sparky, but I would imagine that not very long. If, of course, we have politicians, civil servants that actually could do their job effectively, that could commission the work.
Maybe if they turned up to the work in the office occasionally, that might happen.
I think that would be extremely helpful, especially if you were needing to have meetings. Perhaps you'd put this work out to tender and you put a very tight deadline on the returns of those tenders, and then you commission the work immediately and you made sure that it progressed at rocket pace as opposed to snail pace.
What sort of madness is this, Peter? What are you talking about? That'll never happen.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, again, it cuts across so much of what people are feeling these days, and that is we are rapidly becoming a low-trust society. Yeah. We do not trust politicians or governments to act in our best interest.
Because they don't. I mean, as we've seen, like with things like, you know, the asylum story, we've been dominating our airwaves today. And this is the thing, when the Prime Minister, I thought it was absolutely fascinating when the Prime Minister was saying, you know, we're going to look, well, his spokesperson, we're going to look at, get Alex Norris, the Justice Secretary, to look at the early release scheme again and see if there's anything we can do, you know, getting rid of more foreign offenders, maybe using the women's estate, all stuff that you and I and everyone else have been talking about for weeks, that we were discussing in 24 with the release under Keir Starmer. We were discussing in 23 the releases of early release of prisoners in 23 under the Tory party. It is mind-blowing that they haven't actually looked at this.
It is. It's staggering. And of course, that old line that they keep trawling all the time about blame the Tories, 14 years, etc., etc. They've been in power for over 2 years now. Now, at my time of life, 2 years is a very long time, and you could get an awful lot done if only people worked effectively. But I think in part, so many of the Labour government, and not to mention their backbenchers, do not have business backgrounds. Yeah. So therefore, they do not have a can-do mindset. They can't commission things, get it enacted swiftly, and get the work completed. It's always over time, over budget.
Yeah. But also the appearance of looking busy, moving paperwork around and not actually being accountable for, What are you being paid to do and getting it done? As in, finish, tick, done. It's extraordinary. Now, I want to talk to you also about a specific case of the serial sex attacker and murderer, Simon Levy. He finally got sentenced to basically a whole life term. He will never be coming out of prison with any luck. Found guilty of murdering 2 women, raping a third. I mean, it's a simple miracle. She was strangled, the third, that she actually survived. They were Carmenza Valencia Trujillo in March 2025, Cheryl Wilkins 5 months later, and earlier that year he had raped a third woman in the same car park where actually Cheryl Wilkins' body was later found dead. I mean, you know, he was going back to the scene of the crime, didn't really care. This was a man who had been committing crimes for a very long period of time, often on public transport, serial rapes. He was killing. No one seemed to really do anything or care. When he was arrested, he was out on bail, despite being a clear threat to women. When he was even convicted, he was ended up, you know, serving time behind bars. Committed a sexual assault on a female prison officer, was still allowed out, not considered to be a threat. I mean, I think that's pretty clear that he was still a threat to society. But also, she wasn't even interviewed for 5 months by the Met Police about this. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, has been doing the rounds, doing his sorry rounds. He's been doing those quite a lot in recent years. This, of course, all happened in the way, you know, since Wayne Couzens and the police officer who abducted, raped and murdered Sarah Everard, and we're supposed to have seen a big, you know, big change. There was a big report into the Met Police and all the problems with police officers, you know, wrong-uns, but also failures to take, you know, violence against women and girls seriously. Again, Wayne Couzens was known as the rapist. A police officer who, you know, routinely he'd been caught flashing, he'd been doing other things. We see again and again and again men, whether police officers or, you know, this man, Simon Levy or others, who commit crimes, who are identified, nothing happens, they're finally caught again, they're convicted, then nothing happens when they come out. So Mark Rowley said, look, we've got over 10,000 people who are on these registers that we basically have to keep a monitor on and look at, more than the terrorist unit have got for their people they're worried about. We haven't got the facilities, we haven't got the resources, we can't do it. He's apologising, he's saying the CPS is wrong, has failed as well. I don't know if senior figures in police or prosecution apologising is going to hack it anymore for a lot of us. What do you make of this?
Sorry really doesn't cut it. I find it offensive, particularly as well, that other well-worn phrase of theirs, lessons will be learned or have been learned. Quite manifestly, they have not. Let me just run some names past you of people that have had significant law enforcement before they've then gone on to kill people. Stephen Port killed a number of gay men, serial killer in London, should have been captured way earlier. Lives should have been saved. Valdo Callacane, Nottinghamshire Police, absolutely lamentable. He should have been off the streets. Axel Rudabakana, plenty of law enforcement involvement with him. And what do these failings result in? Tragically, the death of beautiful children, beautiful students, a man on the cusp of retirement, law-abiding gay men and others. It's absolutely atrocious. And while I've got Rowley in my sights, let me just tell you about his media rounds that he's been doing. Yesterday, as you point out, yes, he was talking about CPS and the courts bailing people, which puts pressure on police resources. OK, he has a point. But please bear in mind, this is the leader of the biggest police force in the land. And yesterday, he was wholly and utterly incorrect in something that he said. He said that with regards to Carmenza, the first murder victim of Simon Levy, you couldn't instigate a murder investigation because the pathologist did not come up with a definitive cause of her death.
Is she the lady who worked as a sex worker and was in a very chaotic life, and they basically weren't quite sure how she would have died?
Yes, well, let me just rewind to the judge's sentencing comments yesterday, when he clearly stated to all and sundry that neither pathologist, in neither Carmenza or the other killing of Sylvia, Cheryl, beg your pardon, right? Neither pathologist came up with a definitive cause of death. And yet, all the other evidence, when it eventually had been gathered, the circumstantial, the forensics and the such like, that led to the correct verdicts of murder. in both cases. So Rowley was incorrect. You can launch a murder inquiry when there is no definitive cause of death. He was wrong. The judge alluded to both of those things yesterday. If that's the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police getting a fundamental basic about policing so absolutely wrong, is it any wonder that those beneath him, so many of them, are as useless or as corrupt or as dangerous as they are?
Well, indeed. And then there's been that concern that, you know, actually a lot of these women just weren't considered, weren't taken seriously, and in particular when they were working as sex workers, because they just, you know, it didn't really matter somehow. And I have to say, no, I don't know. I don't want to correct myself whether Comenza was working as a sex worker. I don't want to. I don't want to obviously, you know, say that about if she's not. I'm just trying to look at the cuttings, and I can't find that definitively. I know some of his victims were sex workers, and it was just like, oh well, they didn't really matter.
Yes, indeed. And Rowley also got it wrong because, well, actually, he also stated last week, you know, about how wonderful the officers had been.
Yeah.
Actually, the homicide assessment team that attended Carmenza's body, which, by the way, had been deliberately placed by Levy into a particular position, entirely inconsistent with a fall, for example, they left that case in the hands of local officers. The homicide team did not decide to investigate it as homicide. And yet, officers have been trying to heap praise on themselves. It is absolutely scandalous.
Yeah.
This is the same organisation, along with British Transport Police, who on 2 occasions returned to Simon Levy a stolen travel card which he used to get on the tubes where he carried out so much of his offending. Absolutely pathetic police work.
Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely extraordinary. It really is. Thank you very much indeed for that, Peter. Philip Ingram, your response?
Well, Peter's 100% right. You know, this is where people at the top need to start taking responsibility. And if they're getting their basic analysis and the commentary wrong around the legal substance, and they're at the top of their tree, then you have to ask whether they should be allowed to stay in
I
there.
just don't know. I mean, a lot of people I see, the victims' families of various different horrific cases speaking out. They all seem to say quite good things about Mark Grady. They consider him to be a good man who wants to do the right thing. But it doesn't keep happening.
Yeah, there's a difference between someone who wants to do the right thing and always says nice things and comes across. But you have to have the substance. You have to be able to do it.
There's lots of talk also that the Met Police in particular is just too big. A metropolitan area is the biggest police force. He's the most senior police officer in the country, and it's just too big an area. But I don't think another reorganisation is the solution. 12:50 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to Emma Trimble from the New Culture Forum about, well, I think Kemi Bedrock is right, that Andy Burnham is quite happy for local councils, Labour-run a lot of them, to defy the, well, not trans guidance, the sodding law on whether or not men should be allowed in women's changing rooms and women's toilets. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
sex spaces on biological sex.
Yeah.
And therefore you cannot have people going into a women's space, which is for women only, who is not a biological woman.
I was wondering whether that interview was conducted on April Fool's Day, because I think it was a new low in the sort of...
A new low for low?
A new low for low, because, I mean, just the absurdity of not being able to ask a very basic question about the monarch of our country.
UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:54 is the time. And let's go straight to Emma Trimble. She's Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum to talk about, well, again, I can't believe we're still talking about this, because we had a Supreme Court ruling in April 2025, and we've had the Equality and Human Rights Guidance already, and now it's in place, and yet we're still talking about whether or not local councils and other bodies will actually ignore the law and allow men who claim that they're women or think that they're women to go into women's only spaces. I wanted to ask you specifically, Emma, about the Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, who reckons that the Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is very happy, perfectly relaxed about Labour councils defying that rule. What do you make of that?
Never ends, does it, Julia? I think Kemi's right, because if you just look at Andy Burnham's track record, and actually, to be honest, the entire Labour Party's track record on this issue, but Andy Burnham was quite clear. He believed that trans women are women. Back in 2022, you know, he was very clear that he thought this guidance was going to be confusing. He's very much in favour of, when he was mayor of Manchester, of biological men being able to go into women's bathrooms. And then when he realised it wasn't politically expedient, when he was running in Makerfield, he changed his mind inexplicably, didn't he? And realised, decided that he was going to come out on the side of public opinion, having previously denied it, having previously claimed that it was... Well,
you said that, but he still was a bit shilly-shallying around it. As you said, back in 2022, he said support for single-sex spaces was, quote, a minority view.
Precisely, and I think, you know, it seems to me quite clear that he doesn't believe it, that he's just a weather vane. He's saying it because he thinks that that's what was he thought that was what was going to garner him votes. And now that he's Prime Minister, he's just going to sit on his hands and do nothing while these councils defy the EA party route.
And it is quite extraordinary that the publicly elected councillors, and we've seen this with Greens, some Lib Dems and Labour, a whole bunch of councils in London. In fact, his successor as Mayor of Manchester as well, basically, I mean, she's saying, well, they're looking at it. No, there's nothing left to look at. They were all saying, oh, we don't know what the law is. Oh, no, there's not a problem. We had that ruling from the Supreme Court, which was, I mean, it couldn't have been clearer. It was written, an 8-year-old could have understood it. And then we go, we'll have to wait for guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. We then got the guidance. I mean, it wasn't published for a long time, deliberately by Labour. We get the guidance and they go, oh, well, we've been waiting for that. Oh, well, now we're still not sure. And now they're openly saying we should defy it. And I'm of the view that any councillor who says we should defy the law should be ousted from the spot. They should certainly be losing the whip for their party, shouldn't they? I mean, council officers actually following through that policy, they should be sacked on the spot if they're paid by taxpayers' money.
Absolutely. I mean, it shouldn't have needed guidance in the first place because it's very straightforward. Yeah. Biological women are women. Biological males are not women. And when Andy Burnham came out and said that, you know, this guidance was going to make things more confusing, obviously it's not. This is just common sense. And I, like you, Julia, cannot believe that we are still talking about this. Yeah. But you're absolutely right that, you know, anybody who defies this rule should be held accountable for that fact. And
well, I get people say accountable. Sacked. You're not allowed. You can't be in that sort of role and say, I just pick and choose what laws I obey. I can't say I've got a 20-mile-per-hour zone in my local high street, utterly pointlessly. I can't just say, oh no, I'm just choosing not to obey that rule.
Well, not just sacked, Julia. It should be more severe than that. There should be discrimination cases against any council or any...
And there will be. I mean, we've seen J.K. Rowling has offered her foundation brilliantly. Is going to fund particularly, you know, women, nurses and the like, who's still dealing with hospital trusts, requiring them to get changed down to their underwear to change to their uniforms in front of creepy, pervy male doctors who pretend they're women and want to see it. I mean, it's just extraordinary. We are still in this day and age. Again, I mean, I haven't done it for a while, we could do a regular check for whether or not we're one of those 0.1% of women who apparently have a penis, according to the last Prime Minister. Just have a quick check. Nope, still haven't grown mine. Have you grown yours, Emma?
You know what, Julia? I think maybe if I concentrate hard enough, I might be able to manage it.
Just will it into being. Emma Trimble. I mean, I think we'll leave it at that because you just nailed it. Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, thank you very much indeed. Very brief word from Philip.
Willy. There you are. Is that brief enough?
I don't think we should have gone for a brief word from Philip. In retrospect, David Bull is here. He's
Hello, good afternoon.
Hello, standing in for Ian Collins.
So the big story for me is the state of our hospitals. Nurses